Welcome to the Fantasy Audiobook. I'm in DanMachi. Start a simulator. Chapter 21. Rich Hostess, one of the most famous restaurants in Orario. The waiters in this restaurant are all beautiful girls, and many of them are former adventurers. In addition, the dishes taste pretty good, so they are sought after by many adventurers. Not only that, even many powerful family members would choose to have dinner here. Of course, famous and delicious restaurants are not without disadvantages. The unit price of the dishes here is quite expensive, and there is a store manager who likes to buy and sell by force, so many adventurers simply cannot afford to spend here, or spend money here. The kind that will ruin the family once. The sky gradually dimmed, and many adventurers returned to the ground one after another. Those who have gained a lot will choose to go to various restaurants to enjoy themselves, while the disheartened adventurers can only return to their respective families and eat hard and bad-tasting black bread. This is probably what Olali called polarization. Of course, all of this has nothing to do with Li Yiming and others, and he doesn't have the mind to experience the suffering of the world. Leaving aside the wealthy He Faith family, Li Yiming alone earned tens of thousands of mana from entering the dungeon for the first time today, which is more than enough for a meal at the Rich Hostess. Yiming, I'm treating guests today, so you can order whatever you want. Oh, can you really order casually? Chun's words had not yet received a response from Li Yiming, but Hestia, who had the cheek to follow her for a meal, took the initiative to ask. Her mouth was drooling, and her eyes had become the shape of food. This kind of unique appearance is really ridiculous. Boom. The unbearable Hestia punched Hestia lightly on the head. Hestia, please calm down a bit. Today's protagonist is not you, so please don't make any more demands already. It hurts. Her faith is too much. Anyway, I'm also a guest. Hestia, who was holding her red head, had tears in her eyes, and she couldn't help complaining to He Faith. It's a pity that Hestia, who has seen countless times, has been completely immune to faith, and has not softened her heart. This also makes Hestia can only turn her head aside to sulk. Playing around between the gods is really childish. However, this is probably also the cuteness of female gods. Thank you for your hospitality, Captain, I won't be polite to you. The four chatted and laughed along the way, and soon opened the door to enter Feng Rao's hostess. This was the first time Li Yiming had come to this place. As one of the well-known stores of Olali, it is natural to come to check in. Yo, Mia, good evening. Hestia, who was still sulking before, walked into the store first, recovered instantly after smelling the aroma of the food, and directly raised her hand to greet the female store manager standing behind the counter with a warm and natural attitude. But, she doesn't just come to Feng Rao's hostess for dinner often. After all, the level of consumption here is very high, and Hestia, who has no financial resources at all, can't come here to eat, so she can only come here to taste once in a while when He Faith treats guests. Hestia hadn't come here for a long time, so Hestia would naturally not miss this good opportunity. Oh, it's God Hestia, and God Hedos, good evening, welcome, how many are there? HMPH, of course it's 4 people. The unpretentious Hestia put her left hand on her waist, and raised 4 fingers on her right hand. He Faith and Tsubaki are already used to this, and neither of them is the kind of person who cares too much, so they won't say much. 4, right, Liu, I'm here to entertain guests. Coming. A crisp response sounded from the side, and the goblin waiter Liu Leon with short blonde hair appeared with the shout and came in front of everyone. Liu, please entertain the 2 goddesses. Yes, Mia Aunt. Liu bowed slightly, then turned to Li Yiming and the others expressionlessly. God Hestia, God He Faith, please come with me. Well, sorry to trouble you, Miss Clerk. A group of 4 followed behind Liu, walking towards a certain direction of the shop. Since this time is not too early, there are already many customers in the store, most of the tables are already full, and all kinds of exquisite food have been placed on the tables. Adventurers from different clans exchanged cups, it was really lively. Fortunately, there are only 4 people at Li Yiming's side, and there is no need for a large table. You just need to find a small spare table, and the 4 people can squeeze together and it's done. Neither Hestia nor He Faith didn't care about this useless job. Fortunately, there weren't too many people coming today, otherwise, there might not be a suitable place, and the celebration dinner would be ruined by then. After several people were seated, before they had time to order food, someone came to the door. Oh, isn't this the dwarf? I haven't seen you for a while, and I didn't expect to meet you here. Are you here to find faith for a meal? You really have a thick skin. If I am you, I will definitely return to the heavens in shame, it is too shameful. Joking words sounded, and a woman with a simple red ponytail and squinted eyes came from not far away. Yo, long time no see, little dwarf. A woman with a red ponytail came from not far away. Her tightly squinted eyes gave off a very shrewd feeling, as if she was planning something strange. The moment he saw this person, Hestia, who was still in high spirits just now, frowned. It's you again, Flat Rocky, what are you doing here? In fact, you don't need to look at it at all. Hestia probably knows who it is just by listening to this very embarrassing voice. This kind of embarrassing title is only the goddess Loki, who is very difficult to deal with. The two most powerful families in the current version of Orario. In ancient times, the world had issued commissions to the gods, namely Behemoth, the king of the land, Leviathan, the lord of the sea, and the one-eyed black dragon, the king of the sky. The first two monsters have been crusaded by the most powerful family ever, the Zeus family and the Hera family, but the adventurers of the two families were destroyed by the one-eyed black dragon group, and even finally withdrew from the ranks of Orari. Because of the disappearance of the strongest, the dark faction also broke out at this time, causing Olali to fall into a dark turmoil. In the end, under the joint efforts of the Loki family, the Freya family, and the rest of the Backbone family, Olali to restore peace. But at the same time, these family members were also seriously injured. Currently, the most powerful family of Olali is the family of the god of beauty, Freya, and the other is the family of the god of lies and tricks, Loki. The Freya family has the highest level of adventurers, that is, the Pigman Oda, who has reached LV 7 and is titled the Fierce One. Because of his existence, the Freya family has also become the strongest family that deserves it. As for the Loki family, although there are no adventurers comparable to Oda, there are a lot of first-level adventurers. In addition, there are excellent mages like 9 magic princesses, and their strength on paper is enough to compete with Fu. Comparable to the Leia family, they also secured the strongest position. Although the Loki family is very powerful, but as the main god of the family, the Loki goddess has a very bad temper. In other words, there is nothing wrong with calling her a fun person. What did you say? Little dwarf, you have the ability to say it again. Loki, who obviously wanted to come over to mock Hestia, was directly overwhelmed by the other parties, flat. Even gods are very concerned about this kind of thing. Therefore, Loki, who felt very angry in his heart, looked unhappy, and a large number of s popped out on his forehead. So what if you say it again? Flat Rocky, you can't hear me say it again, you can't hear me continue talking until you hear it, Flat Rocky. Ya shit thunder. For some reason, this picture suddenly popped up in Lee Yiming's mind. You little dwarf, go to hell. The successive provocations made Loki instantly feel furious. She was obviously a goddess, but after she was provoked, she actually rushed forward, grabbed Hestia's cheek and began to pull. On the other hand, Hestia was naturally not to be outdone, and stretched out her hand to return Loki's cheek. However, the gap in talent is reflected at this time. Loki was a head taller than Hestia, and his arms were naturally much longer. Even if Hestia tried to reach forward, he still couldn't touch Loki's cheek. In desperation, she could only turn her head and attack Loki's arm. The two highly respected goddesses are entangled like children fighting. The picture can be said to be quite wow, which immediately aroused the cheers of the entire restaurant. Goddesses fight, what a beautiful thing. Master Shangshan, is it really okay to let Lord Hestia and the others fight like this? Seeing that things are getting bigger and bigger, although Lee Yiming also likes to watch women fight, but the impact is not very good, and they are here for dinner, so it would be better to end it like this. Really, I don't understand why the two of them fight every time they meet. Faith also covered her cheeks helplessly. She has seen this kind of scene too many times, and she is already somewhat immune. It is really a shameful thing to be the same god as these two guys. However, what Lee Yiming said is fine, and these two guys can't let the quarrel continue. Yiming, go and pull Hestia away, and besides, Riveria, I'm sorry to trouble you. Hearing Faith's words, Li Yiming stepped forward, and just as he was about to separate the two entangled goddesses, another person moved faster. A female elf with long emerald green hair quietly appeared next to Loki, and a staff drawn out from nowhere precisely hit Loki's head. Li Yiming, who was close enough, even heard the dull sound, which made him frown subconsciously. It's too ruthless. One tie. The severe pain caused Loki to let go of his hands, holding his head with tears in his eyes. Li Yiming also came back to his senses in an instant, and stretched out his hand to hold Hestia, who was about to pursue the victory. The class conflicts were calmed down. Li Jun, let me go, I must let this stinky tablet know how powerful I am. Ha, how dare you say it, you little dwarf. If it weren't for someone's help, I'd have ripped your face off today, making it impossible for you to come out to meet people in the future. Ah. Only halfway through Loki's yelling, he was hit by the staff again, and his whole body fell silent instantly. Master Hestia, don't take the initiative to cause trouble. If you offend Lord God and won't let you eat in the future, that would be bad. Li Yiming also took this opportunity to remind Hestia softly. Sure enough, under the threat of Sangfan, Hestia also fell silent instantly. There was no excitement to watch, and the other guests in Mistress Fengrau also returned to their seats. I said you have to fight every time you meet, are you really not tired? Give me a little attention to the demeanor that a god should have. Seeing that Hestia and Loki were quiet, Faith walked between the two goddesses, and looked at them helplessly with her hands on her hips. In some ways, her relationship with these two guys is still very good. Yo, Faith Toss, long time no see. In fact, we don't want to care about some people who only know how to eat and drink rice worms. It's just her. Let's not talk about this face-to-face little brother. Yes. Loki, who was planning to speak harshly at first, resolutely chose to follow his heart after seeing Riveria's unfriendly eyes, and could only change the subject hastily. After all, her forehead is still aching. On the other hand, Li Yiming, who pulled Hestia away just now, also aroused her interest. Even though the divine power was sealed, the eyesight of a god still existed. The hidden aura on Li Yiming's body immediately caught her attention. The other party didn't look like a newcomer at all, but he didn't have the slightest powerful aura on him. There is no doubt that it is another good seedling. This is my newly recruited child, who just joined the family today. Mentioning Li Yiming, Faith suddenly showed a heartfelt smile on his face. This scene fell into Loki's eyes, and the corners of the mouth of the god of tricks also quietly twitched. Hey, Faith, you seem to be very optimistic about this kid. Is there anything special about him? It's really curious. Saying so, Loki suddenly rushed to Li Yiming with a swish, opened his eyes and looked up and down carefully, as if he wanted to see the characteristics that Faith would like in the latter. However, Li Yiming, who had been mentally prepared for a long time, did not show the slightest clue. When Loki was observing himself, Li Yiming was also observing Loki in front of him. Of course, he is aware of the temperament of the fun person in front of him, and he always likes to play pranks on the targets she is interested in order to achieve inner pleasure while the other party is showing ugliness. It might be more accurate to call her the god of mischief rather than the so-called god of lies and tricks. However, it is just such an incomprehensible guy who pulls out such a powerful family with one hand. I have to admire Goddess Loki's business talent, which is indeed extraordinary. But now, maybe it has already degenerated because of letting go of the shopkeeper. Hey, boy, we seem to feel malice from you, don't you arrange us in your heart? Just when Li Yiming was thinking alone, Loki, who seemed to be aware of his inner thoughts, suddenly spoke suddenly, which made his heart tighten slightly. I want to explain, but lies are not convincing in the face of gods. There was no way. Li Yiming could only quickly dispel the thoughts in his mind, and Loki didn't seem to have any further thoughts, so he escaped. Maybe it's because of her Faith Toss's face. Forget it, if it's the dwarf's family, we might still grab it, but since this child is your child, Faith, then it's fine. Let's go first, and we have to celebrate with my children. See you next time, Faith, and the little man. After greeting the two goddesses, Loki pulled Riveria and turned to leave. The table not far from here is the position of the Loki family, where many high-level adventurers of the Loki family have gathered, and they still look at this side from time to time. Apparently, they came to celebrate too. TCH, what a spoiler, I hate it to death. Hestia, got it, for the sake of her faith, I won't bother with that dead tablet, hurry up and order, I'm about to starve to death. Hestia, who was warned by He-Faith's eyes, stopped talking, sat down on her own, and beckoned to Liu to start ordering. Seeing her killing all directions, it seemed that she was going to get some food from Loki. The boredom I get is all vented on food. In this regard, although He-Faith sighed helplessly, he did not open his mouth to stop. Anyway, she is also my god friend, and the relationship is very close. Although she is a bit lazy, she has a really good personality. Today is a welcome party to celebrate Li Yiming's joining, so let her be a little bit more presumptuous. What's the matter, Yiming, do you care about the Loki family? He-Faith turned around and noticed that Li Yiming's eyes were vaguely staying in the direction of the Loki family, and couldn't help asking. No, Lord Shangshan, I just think that some adventurers are very powerful. Li Yiming shook his head lightly, and looked away from Loki's family and the others. He didn't lie, he was just speaking from his heart. Whether it was Finn, the blonde head of the Loki family, or Riveria, who had a nodding acquaintance before, they all gave him a great sense of oppression. That kind of power is almost impossible to fight back. Is that so? Hearing Li Yiming's response, He-Faith couldn't help but smile slightly. Don't be envious, your talent is no worse than anyone else, at least you are one of the best adventurers I have ever seen, and sooner or later, you will also become one. First-level adventurers are respected by others, so do your best. Yes, Lord God, I will. The encounter with the Loki family was just a small episode and did not cause the slightest disturbance. The celebration was extremely lively, although there were only 4 people, but whether it was Goddess He-Faith and Tsubaki, or Goddess Hestia who came to have dinner, they all showed a warm welcome. Just as the celebration ceremony deepened, the atmosphere quietly changed. Perhaps because of the interest, the 2 goddesses and an adventurer just had a drink together in front of Li Yiming, and the loud shouts echoed in his ears all the time. Even the mature and steady goddess Faith became joyous at this time. Seeing this scene, Li Yiming, the only one who hadn't been drinking, twitched slightly, and an inexplicable idea appeared in his mind. Today's dinner may not be his welcome ceremony, it's just because the 2 gods in front of him want to drink. Li Yiming didn't drink. One reason is that he doesn't like the smell of alcohol, and the other reason is that if someone gets drunk later, he will carry them back. It's impossible to throw your own goddess or group leader on the side of the road, or they will definitely be killed tomorrow. In this way, in such a jubilant atmosphere, the welcome celebration also came to an end. Without any accident, Hestia, who was the petite, fell down first. Although Hestia and Tsubaki were not completely drunk, they had already started to feel dizzy. Knowing that it couldn't go on any longer, after Li Yiming paid the money, he led the 3 of them towards the blacksmith shop of Faith. As for your question about how to take 3 people, carry the goddess He-Faith on her back, and then support the goddess Hestia. As for Tsubaki, although she is a little drunk, she can barely take care of herself, so she only needs to borrow a little strength. I was happy when I came, but I was so embarrassed when I went back. Fortunately, the 3 women are not particularly heavy, even if he is the only one, there is no problem. Enjoying the bursts of fragrance from all directions, Li Yiming held He-Faith's tight thighs and walked towards the family residence in the night. The first night after coming to Olali was spent so uneventfully. Although it was not as lively as expected, but it was so simple, it seemed not bad. Boom. A loud noise woke up Li Yiming, who was in a sleeping state. He hurriedly opened his eyes, ignored the ceiling in front of him, jumped up from the bed, stretched his right hand to the long knife hanging by the bed, and looked vigilantly in the direction of the sound. Tsubaki's familiar face immediately came into view. Yo, good morning, Yiming, how did you rest last night? It's you, leader. Li Yiming, who had figured out the situation, heaved a sigh of relief, his defensive posture disappeared, but a helpless expression appeared on his face again. Leader, please come to my room next time. Can you knock on the door first? I just repaired the door yesterday, but you broke it again today. Looking at the wooden door that was about to be completely torn apart, Li Yiming felt it was difficult to breathe. On the other hand, the culprit who caused all this is still full of ignorance. Oh, it's not an important thing. It's fine if you can't fix it later. Okay, I'll pay attention to it next time. Is that okay? Chun was a little overwhelmed by the death stare from Li Yiming, so he could only make a promise quickly. Although still skeptical about the latter's words, Li Yiming can only believe this statement now. After he got up and put on his coat, and finished tidying up the bed, he looked at Chun again and asked, "So what's the matter with you coming to knock on the door so early, Commander? I was interrupted by you, and I almost forgot about the business." Chun showed a reproachful look, stepped forward to pull Li Yiming's hand, and was about to pull it out, and kept urging, "Come with me, I will teach you about forging today. This is something that adventurers of the Faith Familia must learn. Of course, you don't have to worry too much. If you don't have the talent for forging, you can choose again later. Whether you want to enter the dungeon or take care of the shop, come with me now." "Wait a minute, Captain, I haven't had breakfast yet." Under Tsubaki's tough pull, Li Yiming, who had just had a little bit of self-protection ability, was no match at all, and was dragged into the forging room without any strength to fight back. Fortunately, although Tsubaki has a carefree style, she is still very careful occasionally. After eating the breakfast prepared by the other party in advance and filling his stomach in front of him, Li Yiming's eyes immediately fell on the various tools in the forging room. The blazing stove was emitting a scorching heat. The walls of the forging room were covered with all kinds of weapons. His eyes swept over these equipments one by one. Although he didn't know much about forging, Li Yiming could still distinguish their pros and cons. Every piece of equipment is no worse than the sunwheel knife rewarded by the system. This is a private forging room that only belongs to Tsubaki. There is no doubt that she made these equipments by herself. Among human beings, Tsubaki is already the most powerful blacksmith. HMPH, have you never been to the forging room before? Li Yiming fell into a sluggish state, which immediately gave Chun a sense of accomplishment. "Let me tell you, not everyone is qualified to be taught by me, even some old people in the family have not had this kind of treatment, so you can let me teach you forging as soon as you come up, you are secretly happy bar." Tsubaki walked into the forging room and closed the door, completely isolating it from the outside world. She stepped forward and patted Li Yiming on the back, and said boldly, "Come on, boy, let me teach you the forging technique myself. Remember to study hard, this is the true story of the #1 blacksmith in Olali, don't let me down." "Understood, Captain, I will work hard," Li Yiming responded quickly. "Although I also had a question in my heart just now, shouldn't Olali's #1 blacksmith be the goddess Hedos? It's just that he didn't say this sentence. It's better to do less of this kind of low EQ behavior." Following Chun's figure, the two walked to the forging table one after another. The latter didn't seem to care about Li Yiming's existence, and he didn't have the concept of a difference between men and women at all, and put on the forging clothes directly in front of him. That is, a white moon-wrapped Hungarian cloth. This unrestrained dressing idea may only be seen on Tsubaki. While fiddling with the stove, he asked Li Yiming, "While heating up the stove, let's do some basic inquiries first. How much do you know about forging?" "Ah, probably just the basics." It is a little bit reluctant to say that basic knowledge, Li Yiming's understanding of forging is still at the level of burning the material red, and then continuously hitting it with a hammer. After all, among the various film and television works in the previous life, this kind of picture appeared the most. He has just transformed from an otaku to an adventurer, so it would be really embarrassing for him to know more about forging. Fortunately, Chun seemed to be mentally prepared in advance, and did not have too many expectations for Li Yiming, so after hearing the response, her expression remained the same. It looks like a pure novice, but it doesn't matter. In fact, for adventurers, forging is not as difficult as imagined. It is very simple to create a qualified equipment. Just want to create high-quality equipment. It takes a lot of talent and savvy. Let's not go too far, let's start right now. After the furnace was successfully warmed up, the prerequisites for making equipment had been completed. In this world of swords and magic, there is no assembly line-like industry, and the forging relies only on manpower. Let me show you the complete forging process first, and take a look at your potential as a blacksmith. Li Yiming nodded, then leaned against the wall and stood, looking forward to Chun's next move. Although Tsubaki is not the strongest blacksmith in Olali, and she is still far behind the god-level craftsman of goddess Hedos, but as a human being, her skills can be regarded as the pinnacle. There is a saying that Tsubaki is not wrong. Not everyone has the opportunity to watch the blacksmith's ceiling demonstrate forging skills. Any blacksmith who knows how to forge will probably benefit a lot from Chun's forging process. If she can show her skills in person, you can see how much Li Yiming is valued. Taking out some prepared materials, Tsubaki started to act directly. The forging process is actually not difficult. It is roughly divided into making templates, smelting metals, forging or casting plasticity, and finally grinding and quenching. A qualified weapon is so simple to complete. In this process, tools and equipment such as smelting furnaces, calcination furnaces, anvils, and quenching tanks are needed. This workbench is the product of sacred text carvings. It is very hard, so there is no need to worry about it being damaged during the forging process. Something happens that creates a rupture. This is probably the most basic forging technique. While Chun was talking, the movements of his hands were also very skillful. The metal ingot was burnt red and bright until the calcination was transparent. Tsubaki took it out with pliers and placed it on the anvil. Up. The purpose of forging is to remove impurities and purify the metal through calcination and external pressure to increase its strength. The words on her mouth did not delay Tsubaki's movements. As a master blacksmith, her skill is of course worth mentioning. The long metal ingot was forged like raindrops. It was quickly punched out of the basic shape. Judging from its appearance, it should be a straight sword. The sales of straight swords in Orario are not very good, but there is still a certain market. After forging the metal strips to cool down to dark red, Chun clamps the metal strips into the calciner for secondary heating, and then clamps them out to continue forging. Such a rhythmic voice fascinated Li Yiming for a while. The sound of forging obviously sounds very harsh, but at this time, instead of feeling noisy, it is very pleasant to the ear. This is probably the charm of blacksmiths. The scorching temperature turned the forging room into a sauna room, and this high temperature was not something ordinary people could bear. Accompanied by the violent movements, Tsubaki was already dripping with sweat, and even the clothes on her body were already soaked, which made her already muscular figure even more beautiful. After going through several rounds of calcination and forging, the straight sword has been beaten into a complete shape by Tsubaki. During this process, the metal bar was also constantly beating, and a lot of debris fell out, which looked completely different from the rest, and it should be the impurities inside. At this point, most of the forging work has been completed. After the straight sword cooled down, Tsubaki continued to polish it. However, since this is just an ordinary straight sword and it is also used to show Li Yiming, Tsubaki did not do too much. For decoration, after roughly a procedure, the semi-finished product is thrown into the calciner. So far, the general forging process has been completed, only the final quenching is required, and the forging is considered complete. While speaking, the straight sword was burnt bright red again. Tsubaki picked it up and threw it into the quenching tank at the side. When the red-hot straight sword met the quenching liquid, a large mist immediately evaporated. Li Yiming smelled this smell and frowned subconsciously. This kind of mist can't be said to be smelly, but it is completely indescribable, at least not the type that normal people can accept, and the experience is not wonderful. When the sizzling sound of the quenching liquid completely disappeared, the final step of forging was also completely completed. Next, you only need to clean the finished product, unpack it, and attach a hilt to it, then you can put the weapon in the weapon shop for sale. How is it? How much have you learned? Hearing Chun's question, Li Yiming didn't respond in a hurry. His eyes were completely fixed on the straight sword that was shining coldly in the opponent's hand, and a strange emotion arose in his heart. The forging steps that were not considered cumbersome just now echoed in his mind very clearly. Head, is the process of making a staff similar to this? Of course not. Magical stones are needed for the magic staff. That kind of making method is not something beginners can master. It would be better if you don't aim too high. First, learn the forging method of this common equipment on a down-to-earth basis. If your talent and your comprehension is good, and I will teach you more advanced forging methods in the future. Chun did not dispel Li Yiming's confidence, and then directly handed over the hammer. My presentation is over, are you confident to give it a try? The steps have been memorized. As for whether it will be successful, we will not know until we try it. Li Yiming's face showed strong confidence, but he didn't say anything to Death. He didn't know whether he was talented in forging, and he needed to try further to know. Then I'll watch you perform. After hearing Li Yiming's words, Chun just smiled, and after handing him the hammer in his hand, he walked aside to watch the next forging. The latter was naturally not polite either. He reached out and took off his shirt, revealing his muscular muscles immediately. This scenery also made Tsubaki's eyes shine. Walking into the forging area, Li Yiming recalled Chun's previous actions, then picked up a slightly shorter strip metal ingot with a clip, and put it into the calciner. Compared with Chun's physical fitness, he is still far behind. For the first attempt, Li Yiming was not prepared to build large-scale equipment either. Compared with Chun's easy and freehand creation of a straight sword before, he was not so confident that he could control the temperature of the flame. So, let's be realistic and make a slightly smaller weapon first. For example, daggers and the like. Among ordinary weapons, slightly smaller weapons will be easier to forge, provided that there are no more complicated crafts in it. Next, Li Yiming completely copied Chun's forging process just now. Although in the eyes of the latter, there are still a lot of flaws in his skills, whether it is the method of forging force or the time of calcination, there are subtle problems, but for beginners, it is already very good. At least she wasn't so powerful back then. You know, after joining the He-Faith family, the goddess He-Faith personally taught Tsubaki the knowledge about forging. She also studied for a long time before becoming the current forging master. There is also the help of developing ability to become so powerful. And Li Yiming was able to restore this level with just a simple demonstration. At least his talent in forging is absolutely beyond doubt. Maybe, in the near future, there will be another excellent blacksmith in the Faith family. Zzz. With the end of quenching, Li Yiming successfully assembled the dagger and threw it into the ash for cooling. Looking at the first weapon he made with his own hands, he couldn't suppress the sense of accomplishment no matter what, until he heard footsteps beside him, which brought him back to his senses. Captain, I'm done. Good job, Chun praised softly, then reached out and picked up the straight sword made by Li Yiming from the pile of plant ash, wiped it clean with a sackcloth beside it, and then observed it carefully. The appearance is smooth and bright, the hardness is moderate, and the quality is good. It is already a qualified dagger. To be honest, I'm really surprised that you can do this step. You are simply a born blacksmith. Really, hearing Chun's comments, Li Yiming himself felt a little embarrassed. He is beginning to doubt now, is it true that the forging talent that was brushed out through the simulation at the beginning has not been manifested, otherwise how could he become so powerful? In any case, it is a fact that Li Yiming has the talent for forging. Now that this is confirmed, in the following time, Chun almost regards him as his successor, and all the forging skills can be said to be imparted to him. Li Yiming spent the whole day in Chun's forging room. In addition to forging weapons, Tsubaki also taught the correct technique of exerting force when swinging a hammer during forging, how to save labor and be efficient, and at the same time not hurt yourself due to deformation. In addition, the manufacturing methods of metal armor and leather armor are also learned from each other. Li Yiming is like a dry sponge, constantly absorbing knowledge about forging. Surprisingly, he seems to be really talented in this area, and because of the breathing method, he can always concentrate his energy, so learning can be said to be more effective with less effort. The high-intensity study lasted until the evening, and it didn't stop until the sky completely darkened. If it weren't for Li Yiming's strong request, I'm afraid Chun would continue to be a teacher when he was so excited, and maybe he would stay up all night. But this is obviously unrealistic. Although I have benefited a lot today, Li Yiming has not carried out today's traversal simulation, and the number of times cannot be stacked. It is a pity to waste it like this. So, after all the talk, Tsubaki finally agreed to suspend teaching temporarily. Since you are tired, let's stop here for now, but don't forget to get up early tomorrow, and then we will continue, okay? Of course there is no problem, leader, I will come over on time tomorrow to ask for advice. Naturally, Li Yiming would not refuse. As long as you can leave now, you can do whatever you want tomorrow. That's good, I'm going back to rest too, see you tomorrow. After leaving Tsubaki's exclusive forging room, Li Yiming returned to his room without stopping. The door of the room was destroyed because of a guy's violent entry in the morning, and it was too late to repair it at this time. Li Yiming just lifted it up and barely covered the door frame halfway. After a tiring day, he was already a little sleepy. However, now is not the time to sleep, otherwise today's traversal simulation times will really be wasted. No, I can't sleep yet, cheer up. He stretched out his hand and patted his cheek. The slight pain relieved his sleepiness a lot. Li Yiming took a deep breath and leaned against the head of the bed to turn on the system silently. System, carry out today's crossing simulation. Ding, the talent is being refreshed. Ding, please choose 3 talents from the following talents for this simulation. Currently available talents. Blacksmithing Master purple, Black Mole of Love green, Peach Luck white, Thin Blood blue, Bad Luck blue. Okay, Master Blacksmith and Thin Blood are old friends, and I didn't expect to be able to spawn again. Looking at the talent in front of him, the corners of Li Yiming's mouth twitched slightly, and his face became very ugly. So, which of these talents is really useful? Was it helpful to improve the final evaluation? Or is it that the system intends to let him choose Mole of Love and Dao Yun Lian to seduce Wu Mi? This idea suddenly appeared in Li Yiming's mind, and his face became even paler. No, this is also a strategy route. Although, as the king of ghosts, Oni Wu Suji has no gender distinction. As long as he wants to, he can become a man or a woman, but it would be too abstract to seduce Oni Wu Suji. Just thinking about that situation made Li Yiming feel bad all over. But it seems that there are no other talents to choose. With Thin Blood and Bad Luck, that really doesn't help at all. So, did the good luck really run out yesterday when traveling through the simulation? Hey, forget it, it seems that there is nothing to hesitate. After all, there is no better choice. This simulation is considered abolished. I hope that the second time I can randomly get a good talent. Li Yiming, who has completely given up on himself, directly plans to break the can. System, I choose the Forging Master, the Mole of Love and Good Luck. Li Yiming said silently in his heart. Immediately, the white screen of the system in front of him changed. Ding, the talent selection is successful. The current talent selection is as follows. Forging Master purple, you are very talented in forging, and you can easily surpass the efforts of others for more than 10 years. Mole of Love green, there will be a mole of tears in the corner of your right eye, which has the function of charming the opposite gender, and the women who meet you face to face will have a strong love for you. Peach Luck again and again white, your peach blossom luck is very good, encounters happen all the time. Talent selected, simulation begins. Looking at the annotation of the selected talent, the corners of Li Yiming's eyes began to twitch wildly again. Well, it seems that he will become a so-called cursed man this time through the simulation, perhaps even more terrifying than a gunman with 2 brushes. I just hope that there will not be an overly exaggerated simulation plot. After all, after making a choice, his right eye began to throb uncontrollably, always feeling that something bad would happen next. You fell into the manner of the bliss sect of the world, and met Tongmo who was basking in the moon in the yard. Because you have already gotten used to this kind of scene, there was nothing strange about it. You were imprisoned by Tongmo again, planning to take you to Infinite City. Butterfly Kanae met Tongmo again. This time you did not choose to stand by and watch, but joined the battle. The improved strength made you more comfortable. With the joint efforts of Butterfly Kanae, you successfully escaped from Tongmo's hands without even sending you off. Time dragged on until dawn. You successfully rescued Butterfly Shanae, and it was easier than before. Seeing your strength and specialness, Butterfly Kanae talked to you very enthusiastically, inviting you to the Demon Slayer squad base, even ignoring Butterfly Shinobi who came to support her. Just when you thought that this attitude would cause dissatisfaction with Butterfly Ninja, you were surprised to find that Butterfly Ninja looked at you in the same way. She should be a girl with a cold face. Every time she makes eye contact with you, the eyes will start to avoid, and the cheeks will become red. Good guy, is this the Black Mole of Love? I have realized its power. No wonder a guy with 2 brushes hates it so much. It's too scary. Witnessing the words jumping on the white screen of the system, the corners of Li Yiming's mouth began to twitch uncontrollably. This kind of development was completely unexpected to him. The reason for this phenomenon is the double blessing of the Mole of Love and the Luck of Peach. Just taking a look at it can actually make women fall in love with him, even the pillars are not immune. To be honest, this is a bit too scary. It is not a benefit at all. It should be said that a curse would be more appropriate. Before Li Yiming came back to his senses, the system continued to simulate downwards. You want to kill Onamai Suji Muyu. Contacting the millennium threat caused by the latter, the strength of one person is not enough to do it. It is necessary to cooperate with the demon-killing team, so although you feel that something is wrong, but still followed Sister Butterfly to the ghost-killing squad base. The protagonist of the Demon Slayer squad, Yoya Sabuyashiki, learned about this from Butterfly Kanae, and immediately felt very excited. Dang even invited you to join the Demon Slayer squad and fight against Onamai Suji Mumi together, and you agreed. You informed the ghost-killing team of the specific locations of some of the ghosts of the lower string, but due to strength issues, you stayed in the butterfly house to practice, and planned to have the power comparable to that of the upper string ghost in the shortest possible time. Yuya Ubuyashiki agrees to your proposal. However, in places where no one noticed, the way Amayashiki Amane looked at you also began to change, just like Sister Butterfly's eyes. I am Nima. Seeing this, Li Yiming couldn't bear it anymore. Should the time travel simulation be so unscrupulous, can this system do some human affairs? Are you really going to kill all the women you've met? The Ghost Slayer blade is almost becoming the harem blade. If this goes on like this, I'm afraid the following content will not be able to be broadcast at all. I swear, if this outrageous talent appears again in the future, no matter how strong it is, I will never choose it again. It is absolutely impossible to be really fragrant. Li Yiming made an oath in his heart, and the feeling of being aggrieved was much better. His eyes returned to the white screen of the system. No matter how outrageous the next simulation plot is, it needs to go on. After all, there is no such option as giving up halfway. You stay in Butterfly House and work hard to improve your strength. Because this is not the first time, and with the careful guidance of the two sisters Butterfly Kanae and Butterfly Shinobu, your strength has improved very quickly. In addition to breathing techniques, your physical fitness has also increased significantly. However, during the communication process, you notice the strange movements of Butterfly Kanae and Butterfly Shinobu. The two always take the initiative to have physical contact with you intentionally or unintentionally, which obviously crosses the boundary of communication, and is more like an intimate relationship close to a boyfriend and girlfriend. You who are lustful by nature did not choose to stop, but accepted these treatments with peace of mind. After all, deep down in your heart, you long to open a big harem. You are naturally very happy to be able to do these things with ease. Slander. He slandered me. He is slandering me. The more and more unscrupulous simulation plots are almost driving Li Yiming to death. Although it seems that there is nothing wrong with the system, it is too much to say so openly. And why is the self in the simulated world so similar? Can't it be a little more serious? Calm down, this is just a possibility, it doesn't represent the real me. How could I be the kind of man who just wants to have fun and doesn't know the importance? Wine pond meet forest or something. The voice of the voice became smaller and smaller until it disappeared completely. Just thinking about that kind of picture makes people feel very exciting. Sure enough, the man still has no way to lie to himself. 1 year passes quickly. After a long period of close contact, the relationship between you and Butterfly Kanae and Butterfly Shinobu becomes closer and closer. It can be said that you are sticking together all the time, almost inseparable. Not only that, even Li Hualuo, who doesn't like to talk, joined the ranks. Your life becomes more and more happy. Your life becomes more and more happy. Based on the exact information you gave, the ghost-killing team successfully beheaded all the Shashion ghosts. Since they dispatched pillar-level powerhouses, they did not cause too many casualties, but the ghosts paid a heavy price. After hearing this news, the morale of all members of the ghost-killing squad was boosted. However, you don't feel the slightest excitement. As long as Oniwu Suji survives, no amount of death will have any effect. The only difference is probably to reduce the number of victims. In the second year, Ubuyashiki Amane came to Choya one day and brought a girl named Kanroji Mitsuri, who said she was a new member of the Demon Slayer squad and entrusted Butterfly Kanae to guide her. There is no doubt that when we first met you, Ganluji Mitsuri also fell in love with you. The Butterfly House has another member. Under the strong request of Ganlu Temple Miri, you became her master and taught her the relevant knowledge about the breath of flame. Although there are deviations in experience, everyone has embarked on a similar path. From that day on, Ubuyashiki Amane would often come to Butterfly House, calling it to condolences on Ganluji Mitsuri's daily life, but you are very clear that the real purpose of the other party is you. You feel very bad. If you continue like this, the abnormal behavior of Ubuyashiki Amane will definitely be exposed, and the members of the Demon Slayer squad who respect Uyashiki Yoya as a father will definitely not let you go. There will be a terrible battle. You don't want to end up like Brother Brush. Even though you are desperate, you still choose to leave Butterfly House temporarily. 1 year has allowed you to improve your strength, but if you want to kill Onamui Suji, your current strength is still far from enough, so you went to Asakusa, Tokyo, found Zushi again, and explained your purpose. This time, Zushi agreed to your request without hesitation. As for the reason, under Takashi's strict request, Yushiro stayed alone in Asakusa, Tokyo, and continued to act as a doctor to treat other patients. She followed you and came to Kamado Tanjiro's house together. Proficiently obtained the approval of Kamado Tanjiro, and learned the breath of the sun from him. However, the effect of the mole of love is too terrible, whether it is Zaoman Iji or Zaoman Nezuko. Because of this, they have strange emotions towards you. Even after you leave Butterfly House, you are still surrounded by the opposite gender. My God, let me die. The more and more outrageous simulation experience directly made Li Yiming wail miserably. What the hell is going through the simulation, trying to improve the final evaluation? You just call yourself in the simulation world, walking hormone, and forget it. Wherever he goes, women will be attracted by him and fall in love with him. This so-called mole of love is too poisonous. Since it contains magic power, those who are not resistant to magic power will basically be killed in seconds. It's a pity that there are no units with anti-magic power in the world of Ghost Slayer. Then it is doomed. No woman can resist the power of the mole of love. Everyone is fine. Hurry up and kill the other me. If this continues, I always feel that the situation will become very bad in the future, and maybe I will be torn apart by 5 horses. Li Yiming shuddered at the thought that even Uyashiki Tianyan and Zaoman Quasi had become like this. He must be hunted down to death by many people. Either way, the traversal simulation doesn't stop with howls. Half a year later, Zaoman Tanjiro died of exhaustion of vitality, and you helped Zaoman's family bury him. Thinking that after a year and a half, Ghost Dance Suji will come here, you propose to move away from this place. This time don't live in the small town down the mountain, but live in a town not far from the ghost killing squad. Zaoman Kuiji followed your suggestion without hesitation, and the group moved to another town. You have settled down here, and you are not in a hurry to return to the Demon Slayer squad, but live here, training Tanjiro Kamado, while honing your own strength. As for the blood needed by Zushi, Yuya Ubuyashiki sent someone to send it, and everything is moving in a good direction. After learning of your whereabouts, the Butterfly Three Sisters and Ganlusi Millie arrived at the same time, and after having a pleasant exchange with Zaoman Kuiji, they also moved in here. When you realize it's too late. The yard has obviously become your harem. The sweet and gentle big sister, the cute and shy girl, the cold and arrogant girl, the elegant and intellectual mature woman. A large number of women are around you, teasing you all the time. Under your blood, you didn't strengthen yourself, and finally had a further relationship with them half-heartedly. Things still happen. When you realize what you have done, you suddenly feel extremely annoyed and disgusted with your behavior. At the same time, you realize that you can't continue to be decadent like this. You bid farewell to everyone and set foot on the road to forge the knife alone, Village Road. You plan to hone your strength and will in a place where there are no women. You plan to go to a place without women to hone your strength and will. Yaoya Ubuyashiki agreed to your application. You successfully arrived at Forging Sword Village, and killed many weak evil spirits on the way, and they couldn't even generate blood ghosts. But what makes you feel strange is that the number of such weak evil spirits seems to have increased recently. You didn't care about this. After arriving at Forging Sword Village, apart from doing daily practice every day, the rest of the time was spent learning forging. At the same time, you were constantly fighting with the training puppet Yuan-Yi Zero, and your understanding of the breath of the sun has become more and more profound. Without the hindrance of other distracting thoughts, your strength began to improve rapidly. In addition to not opening the markings, you have mastered the complete collection of the breath of the sun, Changjong and penetrating the world, and even develop the He Dao by strengthening your grip method of opening. You have become more threatening, almost no one in the ghost killing team is your opponent. You have successfully surpassed the strongest rock pillar. This news also gave Yoya Ubuyashiki the hope of defeating the evil spirits and ending the curse of more than 1,000 years. At the same time, you also took out the 2 skills of penetrating the world and He Dao to improve the overall strength of the ghost killing team. All the pillars are ecstatic and happy that they can improve their strength. In addition, the girls who stayed in the small town and are close to you wrote letters respectively, expressing their longing for you. While the steady improvement in strength makes you happy, you also start to miss the previous days. However, you did not choose to leave Forging Sword Village, you still stayed here, honing your various strengths. In the 3rd year, your strength has steadily improved. In the 4th year, you have fully mastered the rest of the strength except for the stripes. You feel that the speed of strength improvement has slowed down, so you stop thinking about continuing training, and plan to leave Forging Sword Village for a walk. By the way, go back to the ghost killing team to see how the pillars are progressing in strength. If the progress is satisfactory, then you can consider luring Ghost Dance Suji to come out and wipe it out completely. You bid farewell to everyone in Forging Dao Village and chose to leave. 3 nights later, an unexpected person appeared in front of you, with a familiar face that you would never mistake. It was Guiwu Suji. Or, it's a girl without misery. NV Wuyan found you with the Shangxian ghost, surrounded you, and wanted to bring you back to Infinite City. After an explanation, you will know that Guiwu Suji Wuma learned of your existence through the memory in Tongmo's mind. Unfortunately, she was in a female posture at that time, and unfortunately hit the effect of the black mole of love, which is completely against you. You can't help yourself, and you have since abandoned your masculine posture. NV Wuyan ordered all the evil spirits under her command to look for your traces, and finally found the approximate location through the pictures left by the evil spirits you beheaded on the way to Forging Sword Village. Because I couldn't find the specific location, after waiting for a long time, I finally intercepted you. When you heard this, your face turned pale. NV Wuyan asked you to take the initiative to go back with her, but you would rather die than follow. Pull out the perfect sun wheel knife you created and prepare to go to war. However, the tacit cooperation of the 6 upper strings suppressed you to death. Even with the breath of the sun and He Dao, coupled with the increase of penetrating the world, you can only remain undefeated. No matter how powerful Zhu is, there is no way to resist this situation. In the end, the war came to an end, and you were unfortunately captured because of exhaustion. You were brought back to Infinite City. No, you're kidding me. Li Yiming's face was livid, his teeth were clenched together, and even his eyes were twisted with anger. He really wanted to scold someone a little bit. If it weren't for being so bloody, Guiwu Suji Wu Mi was actually affected by the mole of love, willingly turned into a woman for him, and even forgot his original intention to solve his fear of the sun. There are so many winding ghosts just to surround him alone, don't you want to be so exaggerated? I'm Meow. I'm tired, destroy it. I don't know what to say anymore. Li Yiming's whole person has completely lost color. He doesn't want to care about the next development anymore, time travel simulation and so on, just let him die. You were brought back to the Infinite City, but you were not imprisoned, nor was your freedom restricted too much. Apart from being unable to leave the Infinite City, New Wujing allows you to do anything. NV Wuyan ordered all the evil spirits to lie dormant and stop hunting deliberately. She puts more thoughts on you, and she is with you almost every day, expressing her love all the time, but you can't accept it at all. Continuous refusals made New Wuyan a little bit annoyed, and she planned to force the overlord to attack her, and cook the raw rice, but you would rather die than surrender, and threatened to commit suicide. NV Wujing was afraid of your death, so she stopped her compulsive thoughts, and at the same time arranged for Luoji to stay by your side at all times to prevent you from doing any stupid things. Falling Ji has hinted countless times in private that she can let you do whatever you want, but you still don't have the idea. You wanted to escape several times, but you were all discovered by New Wuyan, who took you back. After realizing that you could not escape, you gave up this idea and put all your thoughts on cultivation. Falling Ji reported this situation to New Wuyan, who acquiesced in your behavior. NV Wuyan chose to ignore your behavior. Even if you possess the power that makes her feel afraid, you still didn't choose to kill you, but used the human way, intending to impress you with a gentle attitude. Moisturize things silently. You are extremely determined, and you have not been moved by New Wuma's sugar-coated bullets. In the 5th year, you are still imprisoned in the Infinite City, unable to communicate with anyone outside, and unable to pass on your own news. In the 6th year, the ghost-killing squad caused quite a stir because of your disappearance. The girls who were close to you didn't believe that you were dead, and frantically searched for you all over the world. The strength of the ghost-killing squad was more or less weakened. In the 7th year, you still stay in the dark Infinite City, accompanied only by Fallen Princess every day. Although Fallen Ji looks beautiful and is obedient to you, you know very well that there is nothing more than a pink skeleton in front of you. Ji's big brother Hortaro is not worthy of sympathy either. In the 8th year, your strength has stopped growing, whether it is swordsmanship, breathing techniques, or physical fitness, you have reached the limit. You can no longer endure this kind of life, so you choose to take action against the woman. You successfully defeated Fallen Girl, Prostitute Taro, Yuhu, Bantiango, Yivazuo, and Tongmo. The breath of the sun and Hidao cut their bodies, and the power of the sun restricted the recovery of all evil spirits. However, when you were fighting Hei Simo, the strength of the opponent far exceeds your expectations, almost equal to yours, but the body of the ghost gives him a lot of help. You fought for a day and a night, and finally won by one move after the stripes were activated at the same time, but in the end you fell to the ground due to exhaustion and heavy injuries. In this state, you are no longer able to continue fighting with New Who Am I, and you can only admit your failure. You choose to beg for death if you don't want to continue being imprisoned, but New Who Am I is unwilling to kill you, even if you can't get you heart, but also to get your people. NV Wuqing stretched out her index finger and pierced your head, a large amount of ghost blood poured in. She wants to transform you into a ghost, and then keep you by her side forever. You don't want to become a ghost again. Use the breath of the sun when the ghost blood transforms your body. The scorching temperature instantly makes your blood boil. The natural opposing forces cannot be compatible in your body. The breath of the sun is obvious even better. Your body starts to spontaneously combust. First your legs, then your hands are completely reduced to ashes. This phenomenon shocked all the ghosts at the scene, but what happened next really surprised everyone, including you. NV Wukan, who witnessed you turning into a raging fire, couldn't help but exclaimed, and tried her best to extinguish the flames on your body, but it had no effect other than burning herself. Your eyes show relief. At this moment, Nu Wuyan and Luoji suddenly jumped up and jumped directly beside you. Their entire bodies were covered with the fire of the sun on your body, and turned into ashes together with you. With the death of Nu Wuyu, all the evil spirits lost their brains and dispersed all over the world at the same time. The curse of the 1,000-year-old evil spirit has been completely broken, and you have saved the world with your beauty. But you are still dead. All hit you right. Li Yiming, who was already very angry, suddenly fell into a state of rage. His eyes widened, his face flushed, and he jumped up from the bed. His hands kept groping around, as if he was looking for something. Now he really wants to split this system in his body. What the hell is it called? Saving the world with beauty. Putting it here is shocking, right? It's obviously a world where you team up to fight bosses, but it turned out to be a village Marisu. What kind of behavior did the boss and fallen girl do in the end? What about martyrdom? Did you make a mistake? System, can you explain why I spontaneously combust when traveling through the simulated world? Li Yiming gritted his teeth and asked, I can accept the explanation that the breath of the sun and ghost blood cannot coexist. But even if you want to die, it will just be reduced to ashes silently. The breath of the sun and the ghost blood are existences like heaven and earth. When the two meet, they will fight each other, resulting in a fierce reaction that triggers the fire of the sun and burns the host body to death. Neither humans nor ghosts can bear that kind of flame. It was undoubtedly the first time that Li Yiming's question was answered. This is probably because the traversing simulation system is afraid that his host will go berserk, so he reluctantly explains it. Anyway, no matter what, such a result is undoubtedly disgusting, and it is simply too unacceptable to even commit a suicide. Fortunately, the situation is not particularly bad. At least what Li Yiming didn't want to see the most, the scene where he was forced to bow by the female tyrannical king in the simulated world did not appear, otherwise, he would definitely not be able to sleep tonight. But even so, Li Yiming still swore secretly in his heart. In the future, I will definitely not choose such a perverted talent, so as not to disgust myself. Because of your death, the simulation is over and settlement is in progress. The final settlement is completed. You have survived for 7 years and 3 months, and the final evaluation is S. You can choose 2 rewards from the following rewards. 1 Purple Talent Forging Master, Green Talent Mole of Love, 2 Race Change, Turning into a Demon, 3 The Breath of the Sun and its supporting swordsmanship, 4 This simulated combat experience and forging experience, 5 Opening markings without side effects. There are a total of 5 rewards to choose from, which made Li Yiming somewhat unexpected. Not only that, but the final evaluation actually reached S. To be honest, this is the biggest surprise. Among the 5 rewards, except for the second one, Li Yiming, who turned into a ghost, he wanted the other 4, but unfortunately, he could only choose 2 of them to manifest. Among the 2 talents, although the Mole of Love is more cheating in the simulation process, it is undoubtedly a very good ability if it can be possessed in reality. The Breath of the Sun is undoubtedly the most powerful breathing method. If other breathing methods are only physical attacks, then the Breath of the Sun is completely a magical attack. As the initial breathing method created by Ji Guoyuani, its strength is naturally beyond doubt of. Although it is people rather than moves that are powerful, but at the same level, the Breath of Flames is definitely not comparable to the Breath of the Sun. The last is combat experience and forging experience, as well as unlocking markings without side effects. They are all very useful choices. No matter which one Li Yiming chooses, he can get a good improvement. Unfortunately, there are too few choices, only 2 times. So, what to do now is to be a little more cautious. Although the traversal simulation process this time is a bit cheating, but no matter what, at least the result is good, and the final evaluation can reach S. He is really too magical. But having said that, how about choosing the 2 best ones first, and then continue to collect rewards? I want 1, 3, 4, and 5, if I can get them all. The more I think about Li Yiming, the more excited I am, and I have already started to think about the feasibility. Then the next moment, the familiar mechanical sound sounded again. Ding, friendly reminder, since the host has obtained an S-level evaluation in the traversal simulation, the normal traversal simulation function has been temporarily closed, and the real person simulation function has been turned on. This is the last simulation opportunity in the current world. If you can obtain an S-level evaluation again, the host will have the opportunity to fully grasp the world of Demon Slayer, Blade. Of course, the host can also give up the opportunity of real-life simulation. The world of Demon Slayer, Blade will be removed from the traversal simulation world, and then the system will re-extract the simulation world. Li Yiming. So the 2 remaining opportunities for him today are just invalidated. So now is it good news or bad news? I got an unexpected S-level evaluation, but lost 2 time-traveling simulation opportunities. No matter how you think about it, it's a loss. System, you said that I can accept that there is no chance for ordinary time travel simulations, but you must at least give me compensation. Today's 2 simulations are invalid. If I don't do real person simulations later, the number of simulations given every day will be the same. No yet. Li Yiming's words were quite sharp and came directly to his mind. The room was silent, only the beating of his own heart could be heard. After a while, the mechanical sound of the system sounded again. Ding, questioned by the host, something unreasonable was detected, and it is now being repaired. Compensation has been made. The number of selected rewards for the host has changed to 4, and among the 5 randomly obtained rewards in this simulation, 4 can be selected as rewards. The same problem will not be repeated in the future, and the compensation will only be given once. I hope the host will know. Can I only choose 4? Hearing the voice in his head, Li Yiming was still a little dissatisfied. After all, there are infinite possibilities for the reward of crossing the simulation, but the compensation now is visible to the naked eye. But he knew that some compensation was already the biggest concession of the system. There seems to be nothing unacceptable. Li Yiming stared at the white screen for a long time, and finally he could only sigh and make a choice. System, I have accepted this compensation plan. Except for the race change, I want all the other 4 rewards. There should be no problem with this, right? Li Yiming said silently in his heart. Meet the compensation requirements, choose success. After a moment of silence, the system's voice sounded again. Immediately afterwards, a familiar feeling of pain emerged in Li Yiming's mind, and a large number of memories appeared one after another, as if engraved deep in his mind. Li Yiming absorbs these memories and knowledge fascinated Ly, feeling that his skills in all aspects are crazily improving at a speed visible to the naked eye. Due to the rules of the world, talents are being manifested. The purple talent Forging Master is transformed into the development ability, Forging B, which can be improved through hard work. The green talent Mole of Love is transformed into the magic, Mole of Love D, which can be free to turn on or off, to improve itself through effort. Because the skill requires the use of magic power, it can increase the magic power value during use. The successive sounds made Li Yiming's expression extremely exciting. This compensation seems to be stronger than expected, and it also solved one of his biggest worries. So delicious. With the realization of the 4 rewards, Li Yiming felt that his strength had also improved visibly. The familiar flame tattoo appeared on his chest, which was exactly the same as the logo of the Faith family of Het Faith, the only difference was that it was slightly shrunk. The sense of power coming from all parts of the body made Li Yiming exclaim subconsciously, the markings without side effects are really powerful. The Mole of Love can be turned on and off by itself. As long as it is turned on, even if it is using magic, it is equivalent to outputting magic power, and the magic power value will increase steadily. It is really a timely reign. Li Yiming, who originally felt a little sick because of the simulation results, now also understands what is called true fragrance. Misfortune is where blessings rest, and blessings are where misfortune lies. This sentence is not without reason. Next, don't worry about the increase in magic ability value, becoming a hexagonal warrior is also a certainty. But what needs to be paid attention to is probably the occasion when the Mole of Love is turned on. Although the labyrinth city Orari has a large base of adventurers, not all of them are stronger than Li Yiming, so the probability of women being affected by magic is very high. To put it simply, he is now the male version of God of Beauty, Freya. The difference is that the Mole of Love will be more gentle, not forcibly charming. In order to avoid trouble, Li Yiming decided that it would be better not to activate this magic in crowded places. When I think of too many women falling in love with themselves under the influence of magic again, the feeling is not as wonderful as imagined. It's a pity that it's not that simple to become stronger or acquire skills later on. The evaluation has been upgraded to S, the normal simulation function has been blocked, and only real-life time travel simulation can be performed, but now it is really not necessarily possible to defeat Guiwu Suji, and there is only one chance. After a short period of joy, Li Yiming began to think about the future again. Let's not talk about whether he has that strength, even if he does, according to Oni Wu Suji's vigilance, when he knows that his existence can threaten his existence, he will definitely fight again. Therefore, Li Yiming will not conduct a real-life simulation without full confidence. It seems that the traversal simulation system can't be used for the time being. The real-person simulation can only be performed after the basic ability value has accumulated to the maximum and has been successfully upgraded. Li Yiming thought so in his heart. In fact, according to his prediction, the maximum level of LV.1 should be enough to deal with Shangxiang Gui. If through exquisite cooperation, it may be impossible to routinely reach Guiwu Suji Wuma. But to be on the safe side, it would be better to be a little more secure. It doesn't matter whether you can gain control of the world of Demon Slayer, Blade, the reward after clearing the level is what Li Yiming desires. The only shortcoming now is the basic physical fitness. It seems that we will need to enter the dungeon more in the days to come. After all, forging can be temporarily put on hold. The current forging experience is not much worse than those senior blacksmiths. After clarifying the direction of the future, Li Yiming naturally took a deep breath, and his whole body became slightly relaxed. Although the process has some twists and turns, everything is moving in a good direction. Tisk, it's a little difficult to wait until tomorrow, and now I want to try to see what level my strength has reached. After nothing else, Li Yiming's heart also became active. Although he and Chun entered the dungeon yesterday, but because of this reason, he couldn't do his best. Now that his strength has improved again, to be honest, Li Yiming has no way to continue to endure until tomorrow. sitting on the bed in silence for a moment, then suddenly raised his head. The next moment, a figure left the room in an instant and tiptoed towards the direction of the Tower of Babel. In order not to be discovered by others, Li Yiming even opened the world of stripes and transparency. The weapon shop closed early, and there was no one else guarding it. Li Yiming left the blacksmith shop without any hindrance and disappeared into the night. Walking against the flow of people all the way to the Tower of Babel, hiding his figure to avoid all sight, and entering the underground city. The dungeon at night is completely different from that during the day, and the number of adventurers is much smaller than that. This is probably because there will be more monsters at night and their strength will be stronger. Most adventurers will not choose to enter the dungeon at night. Along the way, the lights were extremely dim, and the stone walls along the way seemed to have turned into a man-eating devil's cave, and powerful monsters might be born at any time to kill the enemy. Even the weakest goblin possesses terrifying power at this time. However, even though the monsters fell into a furious state, they still had no power to fight back in front of Li Yiming. He didn't even use the breath of the sun and its supporting swordsmanship, and just relied on his fists to push forward easily. Those who chopped melons and vegetables all the way to the 7th floor were not hindered at all. If it took a lot of effort to fight the frog shooter yesterday, then now, it can be called a child with a punch. All kinds of skills still haven't appeared, and that time hasn't come yet. The monsters encountered today are all killer ants. As a newcomer killer, Li Yiming intends to find a suitable terrain, and then let these killer ants in front of him attract more companions. Adventurers want to become stronger quickly, so they naturally have to constantly challenge their limits. Li Yiming is going to do that now. Chapter 31. After a while, the dense crowd of killer ants seemed to be hunters who sensed their prey, and the pupae gathered towards Li Yiming's position. The location has been carefully selected, it can be described as perfect. The narrow passage limits the number of killer ants that can pass through. Even though the killer ants are as terrifying as locusts, there are not many monsters that can come in front of them. Li Yiming frowned slightly as he looked at the monsters emerging one after another in the passage and the wall as if they were giving birth to life. The unique chirping sound of beetles echoed in the ears, enough to make most people feel a tingling scalp. Li Yiming's expression was as usual, and he held his right hand in the air, and the exclusive sun wheel knife appeared in the palm of his hand. Completely different from all the bends of the Te Dao, this Bingri Lun Dao is more like a combination of Tang Dao and Miao Dao. Not only is the blade straight, but it also has a handle that can be held with both hands. This is probably the blade created by the system based on the expectations in his mind. The quantity is still considerable, so I am mourning. A slight murmur sounded, and Li Yiming, holding a knife in both hands, rushed forward. Countless killer ants roared and swarmed in groups. Chi 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 chi, chi chi. In the empty dungeon, the silent passage was filled with the neighing of ants and the sound of collisions. The sharp blade sliced across, easily cutting the killer ant in front of him. Li Yiming's figure was moving around in the crowd of monsters. Each knife can take away a killer ant, and at the same time avoid the sharp teeth attacks of other killer ants around him. If it was an attack that couldn't be avoided, it simply moved, and took it with a less fatal part. This can also increase the durability value. As time passed, Li Yiming gradually got used to the attacking methods of the killer ants. Even though the number of monsters around is still huge, they can no longer oppress him too much. At this time, fighting is no longer fighting, but an art. There is no way to bring pressure, so let's go deeper. Li Yiming kept moving his hands, but his heart was extremely active. But before that, let's get rid of this huge group of killer ants in front of us. So, his expression froze, and he kicked a killer ant out with one kick, and raised the sun wheel knife in his hand suddenly, and with each breath, he suddenly sent out a high-speed slash. The breath of flames, the unbridled winds of the flames. In an instant, the swordsmanship, like a vortex of flames, left the body in an instant, and the dense sword edge smashed all the monsters in front of him to pieces. A vacuum zone instantly appeared in the narrow passage, and the air was filled with the smell of burning flames. Breath of Flame 2 type rises into the summer. The sun wheel knife from the bottom up cuts down the monsters falling from the hole above the head. Li Yiming's movements didn't stop, and he swung the knife again with the inertia of forward and falling, and his whole person instantly exuded an unstoppable might. Breath of flame, 3 types of Qi Yan Vientian. A blade from top to bottom, like a blazing sword, pierced through the oncoming killer ants, and hit the place where the monsters were most dense. Boom! When the sword energy fell to the ground, the monsters in the area were instantly shattered, and some of them seemed to be burned by flames, and the concussion caused by the explosion spread to the surroundings. In an instant, part of the area was emptied by the crowded monster tide. However, the vacated area was quickly filled by subsequent killer ants. Looking at the number of monsters that didn't seem to have decreased much, Li Yiming frowned slightly, and at the same time couldn't help being slightly speechless. Tisk, it's really difficult. This amount is really beyond the reach of ordinary people. Even I am already a little tired, so I can't delay any longer. Due to the strenuous exercise just now, Li Yiming was a little out of breath at this time. Although he has acquired many powerful skills through time travel simulation, his most basic body has not been significantly enhanced, and the only thing that is bestowed with super physical strength in the whole episode is usually. Although the killer ants in front of them were not considered strong, they were huge in number, and under continuous consumption, they could not maintain a fighting state for a long time. So, it's time to end this battle. Breath of Flame Wuji Yanhu. Perhaps because of the magic power, the flame generated by Li Yiming's thrust turned into a flaming tiger, roaring and attacking the killer ants. The terrifying flames devoured a large number of killer ants, and the shrill screams resounded through the entire passage. Crackling. There were sounds like fried chestnuts one after another, and the smell of burning made Li Yiming subconsciously hold his breath. The remaining killer ants continued to gather, and the top of the cave cracked open again. An individual that is clearly different from ordinary killer ants sprang out, making piercing screams and constantly provoking. As soon as it landed, a lot of dust was thrown up. Obviously, this is an enhanced species used by dungeons to clean up adventurers, and there is only a very small chance of it appearing. I didn't expect it to be encountered by Li Yiming. Do you still want to struggle to the death? Then destroy you completely. The breath of flame, the purgatory of the ubiquitous 9. Boom. The flame column roared past, and everything along the way was completely shattered. Even the magic stone in the monster's body was burned to the ground by the terrifying flames. Om. The sun wheel knife in his hand swung violently, and then slowly retracted into the scabbard. Looking back, there were corpses behind him. After the battle, Li Yiming immediately slumped on the ground. Facing the number of killer ants just now, among them there are a few strengthened individuals. Even if such a monster is only equivalent to a LV.1 adventurer, the sense of oppression it brings is very terrifying. Li Yiming's current physical fitness is still a shortcoming, and it is not easy to be able to achieve this level. Sitting on the spot and resting for a while, his physical strength also recovered at a speed visible to the naked eye. After regaining the ability to move, Li Yiming stood up slowly, looking at the mess around him. His mood became complicated. A large number of broken limbs are scattered on the ground, many of which have been recovered by the dungeon. The battle just now was so violent that he smashed the magic stones in many monsters, and there was no time to collect them. As for the remaining ones, they still need to be excavated one by one. At this time, Li Yiming began to envy the World of Dungeon Encounters anime version. As long as the monster is killed, the magic stone will fall by itself, and there is no need to dig it out with your own hands. Not only is it more convenient, but it can also save more time. How can it be like this now? How handsome was the fighting posture just now? How embarrassing is his back? It looks like I need to find a supporter when I enter the dungeon in the future. While complaining in his mouth, the movements of his hands did not stop at all. After all, as an adventurer, the source of income is only the magic stone in front of him. Although Li Yiming can make money by making or repairing weapons for others, he doesn't particularly like that kind of life. Once in a while may be okay, let him work on the iron for a long time, let him be spared. After an hour, most of the dropped items and magic stones were collected, and the remaining bits and pieces were thrown aside. Li Yiming's physical strength recovered again, and he felt that he was still in a healthy state. His original plan to return to the ground was changed again at this time. It's all here, take advantage of this opportunity to go deeper. Although it is not possible to go too far, it is still no problem to go down a few floors. However, this time it is not to try to fight, but to explore the structure of the dungeon a little bit, and learn about the attack methods of monsters on deeper floors. In the same way, by the way, some of the materials here will be judged, such as the quality of the falling materials, the level strength of the monsters, and so on. Intentionally avoiding fighting, Li Yiming reached the 10th level smoothly. When walking out of the rotating passage, the surrounding environment began to change. The underground cave turned into a pure white field. The white-gray tender white branches have no leaves, and the grass is like a silver-gray wilderness. It seems that the entire area has been smeared with a layer of silver, like a missing color. In Li Yiming's line of sight, many more powerful auras than the killer ants are looming. Just as he was observing the surrounding layout, a burst of noisy footsteps suddenly came from a distance. In the depths of the silver wilderness, several figures were rushing towards the stairs at high speed, each of them had more or less faint scars. This seems to be a team of adventurers consisting of 5 people. Judging from the leather armor they wore and the shields they held in their hands, they didn't look like rookies, but they weren't powerful adventurers either. They could only be regarded as senior adventurers among the lower-level adventurers. Not far behind this team, several huge green-skinned monsters were chasing them. Seeing that the distance between the 2 phalanxes was getting closer, the green-skinned monster had already caught up within a few breaths. Yiming, a young man wearing leather armor and holding a shield, turned his head and saw the monster that was close at hand. He immediately looked at his companion in front of him with horror, and shouted loudly, "Help me!" Puff! Before he could finish his words, he was hit on the head by a huge wooden stick, accompanied by a sound like a watermelon breaking. The lawn was stained red with blood, and then his broken body smashed onto the grass. Tom was killed too. Stop talking nonsense. Hurry up to the upper floors. These half-orcs are not something we can deal with. Run. Witnessing the death of their companions with their own eyes, the remaining adventurers were all plunged into endless fear. The threat of death weighed on their hearts, and they wished they could grow 2 more legs at this moment. The direction in which this group of people were running was the entrance of the staircase where Li Yiming was. There are still people in the dungeon at this time. It's really hard work, but the appearance of being hunted down is really embarrassing enough. Li Yiming had a panoramic view of all the situation and couldn't help shaking his head. Although Olali is the city of dreams, adventurers are also glamorous, but they are not as gorgeous as they appear on the surface. They often face much more life and death crises than ordinary people. If you want to become a master, you need to pay a corresponding price. Perhaps, ordinary people become adventurers, that is, from the bottom of one class to the bottom of another class. There are really despicable methods. Just when this idea appeared in Li Yiming's mind, the situation on the field changed suddenly. Among the adventurer team, a plump little human carrying a huge package ran at the forefront, and several others arrived at the intersection one after another. But when the green-skinned monsters approached, the plump supporter suddenly, a companion behind him directly grabbed the backpack and pulled it back forcefully. The huge force instantly made her lose her center of gravity and fell directly to the ground. And the half-orcs who swarmed over had already raised their sticks. The supporter of the Palom clan fell to the ground, his face hidden in the hood showing a look of despair. On the other hand, the adventurer who did all this did not show the slightest guilt on his face. Instead, he had a look of reason, and even had time to explain to the rest of his companions. Anyway, it's a useless supporter. Being able to attract firepower is already the greatest use. We usually spend so much mana to support her. Now it's time to make sacrifices for the team. The high-sounding words stunned the other adventurers almost at the same time. However, the fear of death soon overcame moral values. As long as they can survive, the life and death of other people has nothing to do with them. This is a true portrayal of the hearts of some adventurers. Peter is right. Compared with us adventurers, supporters are not worth mentioning at all. It is only natural to make sacrifices. Let's escape first, and then bring someone to rescue her. That's right, go to the ground and call for support. Quote. With a few words, the only remaining guilt in everyone's hearts completely disappeared. They turned around with cold expressions, no longer looked behind them, and completely abandoned their former volunteer companions like throwing garbage, in exchange for their chances of survival. Only the supporter of the Palom clan was left, crumbling under the attack of the orcs. It really made me see a wonderful scene. Li Yiming, who had witnessed the whole process, stood on the stairs with a disdainful sneer on his face. Sure enough, there are scumbags everywhere. Disgusting, but that's what humans are. The sudden sound made everyone show vigilance. On the only way to the upper floor, Li Yiming was looking at them without any emotion. Obviously he had seen everything that happened just now. It also means that the murder of the supporter was also seen by this kid. The Adventurers Guild clearly stipulates that adventurers are not allowed to fight privately. Anything can be resolved through the arena of the Ganesha Familia, or directly start the Familia War. If you kill other adventurers in private, the consequences will be very serious. Of course, rules are dead, but people are alive. The Adventurers Guild can't maintain surveillance on all adventurers at all times, and the dungeon is also very large, and some adventurers with unscrupulous intentions will choose to seek wealth and death in it. There are even some adventurers who directly work in Orario. Since their behavior is seen by others, it is natural to deal with it. Hey, kid, did you see anything just now? A tall man with white hair and red eyes holding a red blade walked towards Li Yiming without any trace, and asked in a rough voice. In the process, he did not forget to wink at the other companions. All of a sudden, several adventurers surrounded Li Yiming directly. However, the latter didn't care about the actions of these guys, they were just a bunch of jumping clowns. If you are referring to your despicable actions just now, then I have indeed seen it. It is really an eye-opener for me to do such things with peace of mind. However, if you think about it, you don't dare to fight half-orcs at all, but you are quite proficient in dealing with humans, so are you trying to kill people now? Hey, we didn't want to at first, but if you want to blame, you can blame yourself. Why did you just happen to be here? Why did you just happen to see that thing? And in the next life, remember what you can say and what you can't say. Cruel smiles appeared on the faces of all the adventurers, and almost all of them drew their weapons. There will be no other adventurers coming here for the time being, so no one will know what we have done, so you can go with peace of mind. Rest assured, with that Palam accompanying you, you will not be alone," said the tall man with white hair and red eyes before. Hearing these words, Li Yiming raised his head slowly, looked over the crowd to the Palam supporters who were not far away, and the other party was almost unable to hold on. "There's no time to chat, this is what I want to say, you won't be alone." What? Li Yiming's words made everyone feel puzzled, even full of disdain. They didn't feel any powerful aura from Li Yiming's body at all. The other party's ordinary appearance, apart from being a little handsome, didn't have the posture that a high-level adventurer should have at all. A low-level adventurer who wants to fight against so many of them is looking for death. However, the next moment they paid the price for their contempt. The breath of the sun, the shape of one, and the round dance. The ferocious flames arced past, and even Li Yiming's figure flickered past. The adventurers who were so arrogant just now, who wanted to kill and silence them, didn't react at all at this time, they only felt a scorching temperature whistling past, followed by severe pain. Looking down, everyone's chest had been left with a deep and visible scar at some point. The high temperature scorched the wound, leaving dark marks that only appeared after being scorched. What? Ear-piercing screams sounded one after another, followed by the sound of heavy objects falling. Only those who are innocent can sleep peacefully, you just lie on the ground and enjoy your last time. Li Yiming turned his head to the side, his eyes were cold, and then he jumped straight down the stairs and came directly to the central area of the orcs. Breath of the Sun 12 shapes flame dance. Above the silver wasteland, bright flames shot out instantly. Just in the blink of an eye, the terrifying flaming sword energy roared past, igniting even the sparse weeds on the ground, and the original silver world instantly turned into a sea of flames. The bodies of all orcs were rigid and severed from the waist and neck. With a gust of wind blowing from a distance, the flames swayed slightly, and all the previous roars and the peculiar stench of orcs were blown away by the wind. The strength of half-orcs is not as terrible as imagined. Compared with killer ants, they are stronger in body and stronger in strength, but their speed is not outstanding, and their number is only this level. Li Yiming put away the blade calmly, everything in front of him had turned into wasteland. He probably understands his specific strength now, at least among the lowest level adventurers, he is definitely the type who has no opponents, and some weak LV.2s are not his opponents either. If you wait until the 5 basic ability values are improved, it is not a fantasy to leapfrog to fight. However, if you want to increase the speed of acquiring proficiency, these half-orcs are good training objects, but the number of monsters needs to be further increased. Are you okay? Withdrawing his gaze from the half-orc corpse on the ground, Li Yiming looked down at Palom, who was sitting on the ground. No, I'm fine, thank you for saving me, adventurer. The care of Li Yiming flattered the Palom supporters, who were in despair. They wanted to get up, but they had just been dragged back from the brink of death. They were exhausted and even lost the strength to stand up. It's fine. If you can't stand up, just sit down. That's not shameful. No one can keep calm in the face of death, even me. Take a good rest. I still have some things to deal with. After the voice fell, Li Yiming moved his eyes slowly. In the direction he came from, that is, farther away, the previous group of adventurers were already looking at their position with dull expressions. The scars left on the body did not reduce the pain at all, making everyone's facial expressions quite distorted. They seemed to have messed with the wrong person. Just one knife. The half-orc group that made their temporary team defeated was easily and freely solved. During the process of swinging the knife, brilliant flames appeared, which obviously belonged to the power of magic. Adventurers with magic are the backbone of each family, and they are not something that low-level adventurers like them can provoke. In addition to the long knife in the opponent's hand, even though there is no inscription on the knife, the pattern of the chaotic blade is extremely exquisite. It is obviously a high-end product, and the adventurer level of the man in front of him has at least reached LV.3 or above. Now it's your turn. Li Yiming slowly came in front of this group of guys, his voice full of flatness. However, the movement obviously didn't carry any murderous intent, but it made all the adventurers lying on the ground feel horrified, as if a hand was pinching their throats. Even breathing is stagnant. You, don't come here. We were just joking just now. As for pushing that Palom, we didn't do it on purpose. We just want to survive. You can't kill me. The Adventurers Guild does not allow adventurers to fight privately. If you do something to me, my Lord God will not let you go. At that time, what you will face is from the Adventurers Guild, and even the whole of Europe. You don't want to face that kind of situation with Larry's Adventurer's Pursuit. As long as you let me go, I can give you everything on my body, and we can make friends, how about it? Noticing the gathering of Li Yiming's gaze, the former white-haired and red-eyed adventurer hurriedly begged for mercy, with threatening words mixed in, trying to survive. After hearing his words, the other adventurers who were still in a daze rushed to speak. Yes, that's right, you can't kill us, we were just joking before. If you really do something to us, the family members behind us and the Adventurers Guild will never let you go. If you let us go, we can hand over what we have as compensation, and we can also make friends. Olali is so big, there are many friends and many paths. For the sake of a mere Palom, there's no need to make the relationship so deadlocked, what do you think? Everyone looked expectantly at Li Yiming, nervously waiting for the latter's response. As for the supporter of the Palom tribe who was in deep crisis just now, his face hidden under the hood showed a complex expression, but he didn't know what to say. It seemed that all she could do was to persuade her. That's right, she wanted to persuade Li Yiming not to be impulsive and let these guys go. Although the group of guys in front of them were all scumbags, they were right when they said something. Murder is a very serious matter in Olali, and it is an iron law that is absolutely not allowed to be violated. Even if you are unwilling, it is better to stop Li Yiming in order to prevent Li Yiming from being stupid. However, before the supporter could speak, Li Yiming spoke first. Sounds good, I believe in friendship and would like to show that friendship is mine first. The uneasy adventurers looked happy, and when they were about to say something, Li Yiming's expression froze, and his painting style changed suddenly. Friendship can indeed build a solid line of defense, but I will never impose friendship on someone who doesn't need friendship. Unfortunately, you are not among my ranks. You made this decision, then you need to pay the price for it, no exceptions. While speaking, Li Yiming had already pulled out the sun wheel knife again. The adventurers who thought they were saved fell from heaven to hell in an instant. The opponent's powerful strength was simply not something they could resist, let alone being seriously injured now. You can't kill us, otherwise the Adventurers Guild and Lord Shengshan won't let you go. Everyone roared at the top of their lungs, as if they were in the final madness. However, no matter what they say or do, they can't shake Li Yiming in any way. If he just betrayed his partner and let other people take the lead, at most he will save people instead of killing these evil guys, but blame them for wanting to kill people. Lee Yiming never forgives too much those who want to do him harm. Yasahi may be able to obtain unexpected benefits, but unfortunately, he is not Yasahi's hero, nor does he have the heart of the other party who can tolerate everything. Unfortunately, no one will know who killed you, so your threats have no effect on me. After all, the dungeon is full of dangers, and people will unfortunately die in the mouth of monsters every day. I believe this reason can be accepted by the Adventurers Guild and accepted by other families. Even the excuses have been found, obviously there is no room for maneuver. All the adventurers made eye contact in private, and they all saw the fierceness in the depths of each other's eyes. Go to hell, since you want to kill me, there is no need for me to continue to bow down to you. As long as the smart people are very clear, if they can't defeat or kill Lee Yiming, then the next thing waiting for them may be death. Either way, they are dead, so they have to strike first. A wise choice, but unfortunately, you don't have that ability. The sun wheel knife in his hand slashed across without mercy, and easily cut the throats of several adventurers. The crushing strength made Lee Yiming do all this without any effort. Simply lift the knife in your hand and chop it down, you can take away a fresh life. Screams came and went, complementing the scene of blood spurting. After a few breaths, there was only one special one left among the adventurers who rose up to resist. That is, the culprit who yelled at Lee Yiming and threw down the Palom supporters. Looking at the deaths of his companions, this strong man was on the verge of collapse. Ding dong. The blade in his hand fell to the ground with a crisp sound. No. Don't kill me, I can apologize, it's all my fault, I shouldn't use other people as bait, I shouldn't have the idea of killing people, it's all my fault, please don't kill me. I swear, I will never say anything about this matter today, please. The white-haired, red-eyed man knelt down on the ground, begging constantly, his head hitting the ground frantically. Due to the excessive force, his forehead was even bleeding, but in order to survive, he ignored the pain and continued to maintain his movements. Are you going to kill him yourself? Lee Yiming ignored the picture in front of him, and suddenly looked at the little people in the distance. Being asked suddenly, the little human race was obviously at a loss, and his heart was a little moved. But in the end he shook his head, his expression was very calm. It's still not necessary, thank you, Mr. Adventurer, for your kindness, but I am used to the betrayal of adventurers who form a temporary team. Killing people in Orario is a felony, so I. Don't you dare. Lee Yiming was obviously dissatisfied with the other party's answer. It is one thing for betrayals to happen frequently, but it is another thing for them to not even dare to return their hands after encountering betrayals. Sometimes, if you are bullied and dare not resist, then it is your own fault. What a disappointing answer. I originally thought that you would choose to resist anyway, but now it seems that you have chosen to obey in this deformed environment, so there is no other way. However, I still want to give you a piece of advice. As long as the humblest person keeps his eyes open, he will be able to seize the opportunity sooner or later to take revenge on the most powerful person. Revenge is the most delicious dish only when it is indifferent. I hope you can understand the meaning of these words. Goodbye, no one will save you so well next time. After the words fell, Lee Yiming swung his knife and beheaded the last adventurer, then dug out and put away the magic stone in the half-orc's body, turned around and walked towards the stairs. The strength of the orcs has been seen, and the next young dragon and the more powerful minotaur will be saved until tomorrow. It was getting late, and Lee Yiming didn't plan to spend the night in the dungeon. As for the crime scene, there is no need to deal with it personally, whether it is a monster or a dungeon, they can be cleaned up on their behalf. As for whether the supporter will leak this matter to the public, Lee Yiming doesn't care. No one can prove that he killed someone, if the supporter was really ungrateful. Lee Yiming doesn't mind killing one more person either. Looking at the figure that was about to go away, the little human who fell into deep thought because of that sentence came back to his senses in an instant, summoned up the courage to raise his head, and shouted in Lee Yiming's direction, Master Adventurer, thank you for your help. Xian, I remember your advice, and I will try to change it. Also, my name is Lililuca Erde, and I will repay you in the future. What responded to her was only the slightly shaking right hand. After an hour, when Lee Yiming walked out of the dungeon, it was already late at night. The hours-long exploration was exhausting physically and mentally. Now that he returned to a safe environment, Li Yiming immediately felt very relaxed, and even the starry sky at night became extremely beautiful. The life of an adventurer is indeed full of all kinds of excitement. However, it is also very tiring. Walking on the verge of death is not something everyone can bear. Therefore, most adventurers who cannot accept this kind of life will choose to give up entering the dungeon and switch to some easier jobs. Li Yiming has seen a different life even after coming to Olali not long ago. No matter how the surrounding situation changes, his goal will never change. Since he has the opportunity to come to the capital of the gods and has infinite possibilities, he must not be willing to fall. No matter what, at least I have to become a strong person, and experience the love with the goddess. Whether it's Hestia, the god of kitchen, or He Faith, the god of forging, Li Yiming likes it very much. As for Loki, the god of tricks, forget it. After all, there is really nothing Loki can make people like. You can hear people confessing their love to Hestia or He Faith in Orario, but you will never hear a message from a male adventurer who loves Loki. Sure enough, Ping Yuexiong has no human rights. Ah choo. At this moment, the sneezes from the three goddesses sounded in no particular order. However, I never expected that the supporter I rescued would be Lily Luca. It's a little surprising, but it's a pity that her will is almost exhausted, and she doesn't even want to try to resist. Think about it. As a supporter of the Suma family, I have done my best just to survive. Sure enough, I still don't have the talent of the protagonist, so I'd better not have anything to do with her in the future, and save this kind of thing, let the future hero, Belle do it. However, the goddess Hestia can't be handed over to that guy Belle. We have to think of a way, how to get the love from the goddess Hestia before the rabbit appears. With this idea in mind, Li Yiming didn't stop at all, and quickly disappeared into the night. Squeak. There was a rattling sound from the wooden door. In the darkness, a figure entered the room lightly. It was Li Yiming who had just returned from the dungeon to the Faith family. His movements were gentle along the way, and he didn't run into anyone. Presumably no one could find out that he had left the family residence, so naturally there was no need to explain too much. Phew, no one has noticed. Let's rest now. I have to go to the leader tomorrow to continue learning forging skills. I don't know when I will be able to create magic equipment. After a long sigh of relief, Li Yiming lit the magic stone lamp on the wall. But when he turned around, he froze in place, with an embarrassing expression on his face. On the bed near the wall of the room, Goddess Faith Hedos in everyday clothes was as beautiful as ever, but this time she looked at him with a half-smile. Obviously, Li Yiming's soliloquy just now has been completely heard by Goddess Faith. This is really bad news. Master Shengshan, you haven't slept so late, what do you want from me? Li Yiming bit the bullet and greeted Faith. However, it is obviously unrealistic to muddle through at this time. Good evening, Yiming, I have been waiting in your room for a long time, but I didn't expect that you would come back so late, can you tell me where you went? It didn't sound like a questioning tone, but it was full of undeniable flavor. Li Yiming hesitated a little, but in the end he could only tell the truth. Sorry for keeping you waiting, Lord Shengshan, I couldn't sleep at night, so I went to the dungeon to practice on my own level. I'm only coming back now, sorry, I didn't inform you in advance. Did you really enter the dungeon? Not feeling the lie, He Faith sighed helplessly. There is no need to apologize for this kind of thing, but I still want to say that although our He Faith family is a craftsman family, we will not stop it. Members enter the dungeon. Yiming, there is absolutely no need for you to be so sneaky. The dungeon at night is very dangerous. If you are so reckless, I will be very worried about you. With a slightly reproachful tone, coupled with the eyes of Goddess Faith Hedos, Li Yiming was very embarrassed. This kind of concern has not passed for a long time. I'm sorry, Lord Shengshan, I know I was wrong, I will pay attention in the future, and I won't worry you anymore, Lord Shengshan. Li Yiming patted his arm as if to verify the authenticity of his words. Actually, don't look at me as a newcomer, but I'm not as weak as you imagined, I can protect you. Puff. Li Yiming's words came to an abrupt end. The soft touch and charming fragrance completely enveloped him, and before he could react at all, his head was already embraced by Goddess Faith. Even though there is an obvious height difference between the two, this action seems quite normal. In a daze, Li Yiming seemed to hear the whispering voice from the goddess. I know you are very powerful, but Yiming, no matter how powerful you become in the future, you must remember that I will wait for you to come back in the family residence. Ah, I see, Lord God, I will come back alive. So, you just entered the 10th floor alone. In the room, Goddess He Faith's face was extremely calm, but everyone could hear the blame in the other party's words. Li Yiming, who was a little happy because she became stronger, became very embarrassed again at this time. It seems to be a little carried away. However, there is no way to do this. After all, adventurers cannot lie in front of all the gods, and even malicious thoughts will be noticed by the gods. Even if they want to hide it, it will be useless. Master Shengshan, I'm fine, and I've killed several half-orcs, at least in the upper area. Even if they can't beat me, I can escape. Have you ever defeated a goblin? It was another surprising remark. If Herdis hadn't sensed that Li Yiming was lying, she really couldn't believe that a newcomer who had just been an adventurer for 2 or 3 days was able to go deep into Li Yiming by himself. In the area of the 10th floor, the orcs were defeated. This kind of brilliant record has never been seen in the whole Olarico. You are still a child who is too good to be too good. It seems that it is a very wise decision to let you join the family on a whim. Forehead. In the end, was it because of the goddess whim that he was able to join the He Faith family? This answer really made Li Yiming feel a little frustrated. Okay, don't feel frustrated. I was just joking. At the beginning, I thought you were very sincere, and the family members really needed fresh blood. I just didn't expect that I would find the treasure. Lie down first, let me see how you will change after defeating the orc. Take off your clothes. In a slightly quiet room, there are lonely men and widows, and this speech is a bit like a wolf and a tiger. However, this is also what Li Yiming is looking forward to. Becoming an adventurer, being bestowed with the favor of the gods, has the possibility of becoming stronger, but it must be renewed by the corresponding head god of the family. Therefore, the secret that Li Yiming has a lot of skills is absolutely impossible to hide for a long time. Instead of being persecuted there and delusional, it would be better to be generous. Goddess Faith is also a very good god, and she is very gentle to her children, so there is no need to create barriers. Li Yiming hummed, walked to the bed, and lay down on the bed. She didn't seem to feel that there was anything wrong with it. The red-haired goddess was also sitting on the edge of the bed. Since she came hastily and didn't bring any tools, she could only bite her fingers with her teeth. A drop of divine blood dripped onto Li Yiming's back, like a pebble falling into a calm lake. The blue sacred text appeared, and every character in the status bar was floating and changing. In addition to the rapid increase in the basic ability value, new sacred text appeared in the skills and magic bars. Your growth is really. He Faith slowly opened his eyes wide, looking at the constantly changing final value in surprise, and then slowly freezing the final value. Li Yiming, LV.1, Strength, H158 right pointing arrow E453. Durability, I85 right pointing arrow F362. Delicacy, H120 right pointing arrow E420. Agility, I139 right pointing arrow E411. Magic, I0 right pointing arrow G289. Development ability, Forging B. Magic, Mole of Love D. Use the magic mole to charm the opposite gender. Women who come face to face with him will have strong loving feelings towards him. Skill, Almighty Man, sometimes can get unexpected improvement. Breath of Flame, enhance physical ability, / can emit extremely scorching flames. Transparent World, conceal your grudge. The ability to predict actions and dodge attacks will be greatly improved. Able to see the opponent's body structure clearly. Breath of the Sun, enhance physical ability. / can carry the terrifying solar fire. Increased damage to evil enemies. When fighting with evil enemies, the full ability is greatly increased. Zebra, increase heart rate and oxygen supply capacity, greatly enhance combat ability. Able to help recognized people to open stripes. Brave Sea, nulliate mental interference such as coercion, confusion, and confusion. Basic attributes are doubled during the battle. Entering the dungeon for the second time, this kind of growth is really unbelievable. Too fast. In just one day, or less than a day, all the basic ability values have broken through to 3 digits, and there are so many more comprehensive skills, Faith doesn't know what to say. Especially the extra skills, any one of them is enough to greatly increase the strength of a certain adventurer. But when these skills are all gathered together, no one will know exactly what kind of improvement will be obtained. The only thing that is certain is that that person will definitely be very strong. In addition, the additional levels of skill suffixes and the newly added magic all made Faith feel refreshed, which had never happened before. I don't know how to explain it at all, so I can only attribute all the credit to the Almighty Man. Her Faith's expression became extremely solemn. Could it be that Li Yiming is a descendant of a certain hero who took over the duties of the last hero and was born to crusade against the 3 major commissions? If this is the case, it can probably explain why she has so many rare skills, and her growth rate is so unbelievable. Coupled with the introduction of Zebra, it can help people around you to open up the same skills. The situation became more and more serious, and the last hero of mankind became her child. Thinking of this, the corners of her Faith's mouth slightly outlined a pleasant arc. The shocked Faith fell silent, and the room became silent again. Li Yiming didn't bother. He probably knew what his goddess had seen, so it would be better to give enough time to digest it by himself. As for him, it would be better to honestly play dead. Yiming, I have locked your ability value. Unless there is an unlocking potion, no one can see it. Regarding your ability in magic, you must never tell others, including members of the family including Tsubaki. Do you know what I mean? Faith came back to his senses, and while rubbing Li Yiming's state on paper, he gave instructions. This is not the first time she has said such words. Anyone with a discerning eye can see the potential of Li Yiming. Among Olali, there are many people who understand the sacred script. Just in case, it is better to lock it up. It would be very troublesome if other family members knew about it. I know, Lord Shangshan, I'm not that stupid, and I won't expose my situation. After answering solemnly, feeling her Faith's soft palm gently patted his back, Li Yiming got up slowly, and took the paper on which his status was printed. The above content is even more exaggerated than I imagined, and the increase in basic ability value is especially exaggerated. Originally, I thought it would be almost 100 points, but I didn't expect that the minimum limit for upgrading, that is, the value of a single ability reaching 500 points is only a few dozen points. But this is undoubtedly good news. The rapid increase in the basic ability value proves the correctness of Li Yiming's idea, and it seems that the concentration of monsters can be increased appropriately in the future. Thank you for updating the state of grace for me, Lord Shangshan. After a brief understanding of his basic situation, Li Yiming expressed his heartfelt thanks to Faith Herdes. It's too exaggerated. You don't need to thank you for this kind of thing. It seems that our relationship is very distant. Yiming, you have to remember that you are the child I approve of. We shouldn't be too estranged. Although I know you like Hestia, and I hope you can win that guy's favor, but if you are too serious, I will also be jealous. Li Yiming, there is no way to answer this. It is impossible for him to say, whether it is Hestia or Goddess Faith, he wants both of you, right? If he really dared to say such words, he was afraid that his own goddess would smash the dog's head off on the spot, and maybe he would be kicked out of the family. It would be better not to say that kind of thought. Her Faith, who sensed something, looked playful, and looked at Li Yiming with burning eyes. You seem to be thinking about something bad. Nothing, I will remember what you said, and I will correct it in the future. Li Yiming responded urgently. Obviously, she already knew that Li Yiming was lying, but Faith did not expose it. Although she couldn't know what Li Yiming was thinking, she could still guess the general range. The red-haired goddess didn't feel offended. It's normal to be admired by her own children. Even Faith Toss really hoped that Li Yiming could shift the focus of her admiration from Hestia to herself. The fat and water don't flow into outsiders' fields. Even if you are a friend of God, you still can't make concessions on this kind of thing. It's just that this kind of thing can't be rushed. Let it take its course. It's getting late. Yiming, you should go to bed early. Her Faith stood up slowly, and walked slowly to the door. Li Yiming also got up quickly to see her off. When she arrived at the door, the red-haired goddess stopped suddenly. Steps, turned slightly, with a touch of teasing in his eyes. In addition, regarding your magic, you have reached the right age, but I don't want you to abuse your magic and do anything wrong, do you understand what I mean? Hearing this, Li Yiming's body froze suddenly, and a look of shame and indignation appeared on his face. How could he do such a thing? Even if Li Yiming has the idea of wanting to hug left and right, it is definitely not in this way. There is a big difference between being romantic and being obscene. Master God, seeing that Li Yiming was a little angry, he faith chuckled lightly, and didn't give him a chance to get angry. Dang even turned and left the room, leaving only a burst of fragrant wind in place. Li Yiming, who had nowhere to vent, could only sigh, and stepped forward to close the broken door. I really didn't expect that even the goddess Faith began to learn bad things and was keen to play tricks on people. In other words, maybe this is the true appearance of the forging goddess. Mataku, Lord Shangshan will also have such bad tastes. It seems that we should be mentally prepared in advance in the future, so as not to make a fool of ourselves during the conversation. However, it seems that my goddess has such a small temper, which seems to be very good. Li Yiming, who was lying on the bed, kept echoing the words of Goddess Faith Hedos just now in his mind, and the thoughts in his mind also fluctuated slightly. In the quiet environment, his breathing gradually became steady. Bright sunlight streams into Li Yiming's bedroom through the window. Feeling the faint warm light, Li Yiming faintly woke up from his sleep. It's been a long time since I slept so comfortably. Even though he only came back in the middle of the night last night, and a lot of time had passed in the communication with Goddess Hedos, the increase in strength made Li Yiming less dependent on sleep than before. In addition to being able to grant amazing physical strength, Changjong also has a significant increase in recovery. To put it simply, Li Yiming may only need to rest for 4 to 6 hours to recover the exhausted physical strength and energy, which is simply the best news for him. Chun didn't come to kick the door today, which made him feel very relieved. Sitting up from the bed, he walked to the window and looked out. The courtyard was as empty as ever, and there were not many figures at all. It seemed that none of the members of He Faith's family had returned from the dungeon. But think about it, there are not many people with talents, and he is not the only one who knows how to work hard. In addition to the blacksmith shop on West Street, the He Faith family also owned property in the Babita, and most of the members basically gathered there. Therefore, it is normal to not see too many people here. After a simple wash, take the initiative to find Tsubaki. I don't want the door that was repaired the second time to be damaged for the third time. If this continues, I will definitely suffer from a nervous breakdown. Looking at his poor door, Li Yiming didn't know what to say. He Faith's family is more manic than he imagined. If Chun kicks down his door like this again, Li Yiming will really start to seriously consider whether to move out. Who can endure the life of leaking air every day? Skillfully came to Tsubaki's room, and knocked lightly on the door. The door is unlocked, come in. Tsubaki's voice came from inside the room. Li Yiming unscrewed the doorknob, and the scorching heat rushed over his face in an instant. It was obvious that Chun had already woken up and devoted himself to the forging business. As for why he didn't come to call him, that's not clear. Passing through the room, the wall with a gap is the passage leading to the forging room. Even if you just stand outside, you can hear the sound of iron hammering from it. It is worthy of being the most powerful blacksmith in Orario, and no one can match this diligence alone. One-eyed giant master, this title is well deserved. Captain, here I come. Yo, good morning, Yiming, the time is just right. Seeing Li Yiming's arrival, Chun stopped what he was doing, with a bright smile on his face. I saw her throwing the mold she made into the coolant. Zzz. Steam rose all over the sky, mixed with an unpleasant metallic smell. Today's plan has changed. I originally planned to continue teaching you basic forging skills, but during this period of time, I have used too much force. I have almost used up all the ores, and other advanced materials have also been used up. I have to go out to buy them. Let's go together and go to the market to see if there are any suitable materials. Do you want to go out? Li Yiming, who was looking for a reason to give up learning forging temporarily and focused on exploring the dungeon and leveling, suddenly had a bright eye. Isn't this a ready-made reason for sending it to your door? Looking at Tsubaki, who was cleaning his hands and dressing, Li Yiming suggested without any trace, Commander, there are very few precious materials on the market, Why don't we go to the middle area to find them by ourselves? We can forge while looking for materials. It can also exercise ability value, kill 3 birds with 1 stone. What do you think? Enter the dungeon. Hearing Li Yiming's words, Tsubaki paused slightly. She didn't think about other places, but thought about the feasibility of this matter in her heart. As the only first-level adventurer of the Faith Familia, Tsubaki was able to obtain this kind of strength, all by going to the dungeon obtained by trying out a weapon you crafted yourself. Usually, I often go into the dungeon, and finding materials is also commonplace. What you said is very reasonable. You are also a newcomer, so I will take you to the middle level to study for a while. By the way, I will teach you to identify the most precious materials on those monsters. But let me say it first, the monsters in the middle level are powerful, and the situation is complicated and changeable. Just the 2 of us go, and you will act as my support for the time being. You must obey the command in all actions, and don't act rashly, otherwise I may not be able to protect them in time. Do you understand? While speaking, the dull hair on Chun's head swayed slightly, with a serious expression on his face. Having achieved his goal, Li Yiming naturally responded, "Don't worry, leader, I can protect myself and won't act recklessly, so don't worry." Okay. Let's make some simple preparations, about 1 to 2 weeks worth of food, and then we'll set off. In the end, Tsubaki agreed to the proposal to go to the dungeon. She really wanted to go to the dungeon to look for some materials. By the way, she also wanted to cultivate Li Yiming's combat ability in the process, and strive to let the opponent take charge of her own side as soon as possible, and accumulate enough ability points to upgrade. At that time, she will not be in vain to cultivate it. Li Yiming hurried back to the room and put on the initial equipment. As for the rations and so on, they can buy them on the way later. Maybe, entering the dungeon this time can also update the equipment on his body. If you can find the right material. Bathed in the morning sun, Li Yiming and Chun walked side by side among the mighty team of adventurers and entered the dungeon. Orario can be called a labyrinth city, not only because of its complex structure, but also because of the existence of dungeons. Through the entrances of each passage, the adventurers of Orario began to disperse towards the surrounding caves, and stay away from other people during the exploration process. This is an unspoken rule of all adventurers, and there are naturally experienced and lowest level adventurers. Those who go directly to the lower level. Most of the newcomers still choose to explore steadily, and first get acquainted with the life of adventurers. Li Yiming and Chun are naturally not in this ranks. The magic stones and materials dropped by the upper-level monsters are far from meeting Tsubaki's needs, and the equipment forged is not satisfactory, so it is necessary to continue to go deeper. As he continued to move forward, the surrounding adventurers also completely disappeared. In the not-so-wide passage, only the fire on the wall was flickering, and goblins began to produce from the wall, charging towards the 2 of them screaming strangely. I don't know if it's an illusion, but Li Yiming always feels that there are fewer monsters around. Don't be too weird. I told you before that the dungeon is alive. It will automatically detect the adventurers who enter the dungeon, and then create various monsters to drive them away. If the strength of the adventurer is far beyond the strength of the monsters on the current floor, will not create too many monsters to die. It should be because of my colleagues, so the number of monsters will decrease accordingly. I see. Li Yiming nodded in a sudden realization. Do dungeons still have such rules? Don't be in a daze, I will explain the basic situation of each floor to you in detail later, and I will leave these goblins to you to deal with. Please move a little faster, time is precious. Leave it to me. Looking at the group of goblins that were not too dense, Li Yiming stepped forward slowly and drew out the long knife at his waist. The moment the long knife was unsheathed, there seemed to be a buzzing that shook the air. Wow wow wow. The bloodthirsty goblin roared loudly, and Li Yiming stepped forward with a knife in hand. Kai, the head of the goblin in the front that was rushing towards him, was easily cut off with a single knife. Facing the dozen or so goblins that surrounded him from the opposite side, Li Yiming slashed the blade horizontally and slashed forward without hesitation. The sharp blade instantly cut the goblins in the front row. These weak monsters have been unable to cause the slightest obstacle. Chun's eyes flickered standing behind her. Even as a blacksmith, her combat prowess was still good, so she could naturally see the subtle changes in Li Yiming. Obviously, this little guy's strength has improved again. It's getting stronger and stronger. Quickly collect all the magic stone fragments, and then move on. Yes, Captain. Li Yiming nodded, stepped forward, and dug out the magic stone fragments from all the goblins. Of course, Tsubaki is not what she said. She only let Li Yiming take charge of the support task, and she also joined in to help collect all the dropped items. The mess was quickly cleared up. The two stopped staying and walked towards the corner of the passage ahead. The layout of the upper level will hardly change, and only from the middle level, the dungeon will be like a maze, except for the occasional fog that rises, and the terrain will undergo complex changes. Along the way, Li Yiming began to sweep all the way, during which Chun did not help. When they reached the 6th floor, Li Yiming and Tsubaki met a young adventurer in very ordinary clothes on their way to the 7th floor. Drink. The boy holding a short knife was fighting with a killer ant about half a meter away. The boots under his feet provided his small body with nimble speed. When the leather armor on his body was corroded by the mucus sprayed out by the killer ants, he would still feel pain and could not help but groan. However, the boy's eyes were still full of determination. The short knife in his hand caught the sharp claws of the killer ant abruptly, and then he walked forward, and the short knife slashed at the hard shell of the killer ant. Ding dong. There was a crisp metal impact sound. The shell of the killer ant was intact, but the short knife flew out directly. The weapon in the boy's hand obviously couldn't break through the defense of the killer ants. Shit. The vibration of the weapon made the young man freeze. In his sight, the sharp teeth of the killer ant were mercilessly attacking his chest. If this bite hits him, there will be no possibility of him surviving. Just when the young man fell into despair, there was a sudden sound of breaking wind in the distance. The killer ants in midair had no time to dodge, and their neighing stopped abruptly. The foul-smelling liquid sprayed out and fell on the floor of the maze. The body of the killer ant was smashed to pieces. The young man sat on the ground in a sluggish way, panting heavily, his heart full of joy and fear for the rest of his life. In his sight, he saw the back of a silver-armored swordsman with a chaotic blade, so dazzling in a dim environment. Young man, it is very dangerous to come to this kind of place alone. If you are not strong enough, you should find some reliable teammates to explore together. I suggest you go back to rest today and come back tomorrow. Next time, remember to do what you can. And do. Li Yiming picked up the flying dagger and put it on the ground, then turned and left. The young man stared blankly at his leaving back, thinking of the heroic stories circulating in the village when he was a child. Perhaps the legendary hero is just the situation in front of him. I really hope that one day I can become so powerful. Meeting adventurers in need of rescue is just one episode. As Li Yiming knew in advance, adventurers are indeed a very high-risk occupation, especially adventurers who join the exploration family. The dangers they need to face every day are unimaginable. Even with the help of your teammates, you never know whether there will be monsters appearing from the corner and biting your head off. Therefore, exploring the dungeon is not only a kind of destruction to the body, but also a kind of destruction to the spirit. Often encountering adventurers who are alone in danger, Li Yiming doesn't mind helping out. This is not a saint, it's just doing it casually. His actions today are destined to be spread among Orario. Then, as a member of He Faith's family, the whole family will naturally benefit from it, and the reputation will become better and better. In a world where news is blocked, word of mouth is very important. This is also one of the few things that Li Yiming can do for the family. In just half a day, with Li Yiming and Chun sweeping all the way, they quickly reached the dungeon record that surpassed Li Yiming's. After crossing the 10th floor, the remaining 2 floors are no longer an obstacle. Base. After beheading a young dragon with a knife, Li Yiming took out the magic stone inside the young dragon's body. The monster's body was quickly swallowed by the dungeon, leaving a scale in place. This is a special drop item belonging to monsters, and it is also an excellent material for making equipment. It's good luck. Along the way, I have already obtained 10 baby dragon scales. At this speed, the harvest of this dungeon exploration is really unimaginable. Chun quickly stepped forward to pick up the young dragon's scales, and skillfully put them into his pocket. This kind of scene has appeared countless times, and Li Yiming never thought that his mature team leader would show such a money-fanatic appearance. The contrast between before and after is really cute enough. However, only when there are special dropped items, Tsubaki will rush to put them away. Yiming, I doubt your luck very much. The probability of special drop items appearing is too high. I have been surprised by Li Yiming's strength for a long time, and Chun has experienced what is called underground city sightseeing in this half day. In just half a day, the gains of the two were terrifying. He obviously didn't stay there intentionally, but even if it was just a group of monsters that were eliminated during the journey, the fallen magic stone fragments were of different sizes, but if the size of the magic stone fragments in the half-orc's body was used as a standard, there are probably a total of 500 pieces as much. In addition, the slime of killer ants, the bones of lizards, the scales of young dragons, etc. Even for a team of senior adventurers, it is not easy to achieve this kind of achievement, but now it is so easy to do it with Li Yiming alone. The main reason is that the brave skill is too powerful, and all attributes will be doubled during the battle. Counting the blessings of other skills, Li Yiming has completely surpassed LV.1 adventurers, and some weak LV.2 adventurers may not be his opponents. Even though the monsters in the dungeon have special powers and vary in strength, at least the upper-level monsters are absolutely impossible to pose a fatal threat to Li Yiming, and they are completely unrepeatable adventurers. Leader, let's go deeper. Your interest is really high. Then keep this momentum and move on. Tsubaki's face showed curiosity. I also want to see where your limit is. The two continued to walk forward quickly, and soon passed the stairs. The terrain of the white grassland labyrinth from the 10th to the 11th floor also changed back to the appearance of a dungeon cave with the arrival of the middle floor. However, there are still significant differences between the middle and upper levels. The upper floor of the dungeon is a flat labyrinth passage. A large number of passages are intertwined in such a dense way that you don't know exactly where it will lead. In the middle area, the environment can be said to be more three-dimensional. Not only does it cover a larger area, but you often have to climb up and down hills, and sometimes you can even see cliffs several meters high. This sudden change in painting style makes it difficult for many adventurers to adapt. Even Li Yiming was deeply attracted at first glance. Right above the cave, there was a blue magic stone light, and the stalactite cones hung above their heads, shining like a chandelier. If it weren't for the danger that exists all the time, you would even think it would be a very beautiful tourist attraction. Starting from here is the middle layer of the dungeon. Unlike the upper layer, most of the monsters in the middle layer have the strength to match the third-level adventurers. Of course, this is not static. Compared with adventurers, the strength of monsters it is even more uncertain, and there are special individuals among them, so be vigilant at all times. Of course, if you really encounter a monster that you can't fight against, it's not lifeless. Some places in the middle area can directly lead to the 18th floor, which is the safe floor. Keeping track of the location of that place is also one of the compulsory courses for adventurers. After setting foot in the middle area, Tsubaki's expression became slightly serious. There is no way to stay relaxed. Although Li Yiming's strength has exceeded her expectations, if she encounters danger, she needs timely support. Therefore, you must maintain a high degree of concentration. Also, remember to put this thing on. Chun took out a piece of clothing that looked like gauze or cloth from the backpack behind him, and threw it on Li Yiming's shoulder, who immediately showed a puzzled expression. The situation about the dungeon in my mind has blurred a lot. Apart from remembering some related characters, Li Yiming had forgotten most of the basic information about the monster, so he didn't recognize what it was. The monsters in the middle layer have begun to have special abilities. The 13th layer is also called the first line of death. There is a black-haired wolf like a dog. It is a hellhound registered in the monster manual of the Adventurers Guild. The flames were released from within, turning the unprotected adventurers into charcoal. This thing is called fire fine weaving cloth. In a sense, it is a standard configuration in the middle area. It has extremely strong resistance to flames and high temperatures, and can withstand most of the flame damage. Fire fine weaving. With Chun's reminder, Li Yiming remembered the function of this thing. It is woven from fairy protective cloth, and it is a garment made by fairy spirits weaving their own magic power. It is also a special item with the blessing of fairy spirits. In addition to having high defense against attacks such as flames and heat, it also has cold protection properties. It can be said to be a must for home travel. Don't look at it, it's not expensive, and it's only 6 figures. I've kept this one for you temporarily, so remember to return it to me later. Li Yiming nodded. Dang even put the fire-fine cloth under the armor. The surface of the protective cloth is dotted with bright particles of light, and the colors are bright, making it look extremely gorgeous. It's worthy of being the equipment produced by the cooperation of immortal spirits. It feels that even senior blacksmiths can't match it. It's not unreasonable for this race to be called God Clone. The involuntary exclamation expressed Li Yiming's true inner thoughts. It's just that, although the performance of this kind of work is powerful, it has a single function, and it can only surpass the armor of a senior blacksmith in the field of specialization, but it is still very powerful. Don't worry, you will have a chance to meet that magical group in the future. Chun patted Li Yiming's shoulder carelessly, and walked forward first. The latter tightened the fire-weaving cloth on his body, couldn't help smiling, and followed without hesitation. There are gray rocks rolling everywhere around, and the surrounding walls, floors, and ceilings are all made of rocks, and there is a little moist air floating around. Therefore, the middle layer is also a natural cave located on the mountainside. Some people who don't know anything about it may come here and believe this description. It has to be said that Li Yiming felt a little nervous when he came here. He also wanted to see what was so special about the middle class known as the first line of death, and how powerful the Cerberus, who also had the alias of Pyromaniac, was. All in all, Cerberus is probably the opponent in the middle that needs special attention. Of course, if there were monsters like the Minotaur, it would be as if they hadn't said that. Li Yiming and Chun walked in a single passage like a cave. This process lasted about 10 minutes without encountering any monsters on the way. But when this thought appeared in their hearts, the two of them stopped almost at the same time. The strengthening of the ability value is extremely comprehensive, and even the five senses have been greatly enhanced. Li Yiming can easily capture that something is running from a distance. The sound of footsteps of Papa Papa was very obvious in this silent environment. I came right after I finished speaking, and I'll see you perform next. Remember to ask for help if you can't hold on. Chun looked sideways at Li Yiming, but only got confidence from him. She suddenly chuckled, knowing that the situation of calling for help would probably not happen. However, Tsubaki will still not choose to stand idly by, if Li Yiming is really in danger. The faint phosphorescence reflected several figures, and the shadows reflected on the stone wall of the cave, gradually elongated with the sound of footsteps, and then all the figures fully appeared from the depths of the passage. Many pairs of scarlet eyes appeared, walking out of the darkness without haste. This is Cerberus, which is also an adventurer killer. Its uneven skin is wrapped in black hair, and its exposed sharp teeth highlight its horror. The hellhound has a ferocious face that is different from that of a wolf, and just after it appeared, it bared its teeth and let out a low growl. Li Yiming had a panoramic view of everything, and couldn't help but let out a sound of wonder in his heart. To be honest, the hellhound in front of him was bigger than all the dogs he had seen in his previous life, and those 4 strong dog legs alone were already thicker than most animals. When you say that the one in front of him is a cow, Li Yiming is willing to believe it. The appearance is bluffing, but I don't know what the real strength is, so let's try it out first. Even though he was confident enough in his own strength, Li Yiming did not take it lightly. The long knife at his waist was slowly drawn out, and the sound produced by the friction was like a command gun. All the hell dogs let out a loud roar almost at the same time, and rushed over with astonishing momentum. The two-way rush between each other instantly smoothed out the short distance of 100 meters. A Cerberus took the lead, leapt across the sky, and rushed towards Li Yiming. The latter did not dodge, and the long knife in his hand slashed at the bloody mouth of the Cerberus. He wanted to try to see how powerful the Cerberus had reached. Boom! Fighting close to each other, Li Yiming almost couldn't control his figure due to the huge strength. His face suddenly sank, and he became a little sloppy. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.